Hello, you're listening to Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo.
Today's episode is our Winter 2024 Anime Season Reviews Part 2. We have Solo Leveling, Lv99 Villainess, Dr. Elise, Bottom Tier Character Tomozaki, Gushing Over Magical Girls, Metallic Rouge, Undead Unluck, Witch and the Beast, Frieren, and Sengoku Goku. We might cover all those. Because there's like at least one really big one in there. One really big one in there. Possibly two, but yeah, there's two. There's two really big ones that I think we're going to gush over quite a bit. Nothing?
I don't know.
That wasn't funny?
Maybe.
I made that joke quite a few times during the season.
It was
Everybody
cheesy.
seemed to like it.
It was cheesy.
You just don't want to go with me on that one.
It was cheesy.
We're at TalkSpirit.com. That's where you can go for our links, social media links, links, ways to get a hold of us, ways to support us, Patreon, tips, links, all that kind of stuff. Greatly appreciate it, Sports Channel. But yeah, let's just jump into it because we got a lot to go through. Starting with the most hype show of hype is hype. Like, you cannot walk 2 feet without stepping in that hype.
Right.
Solo Leveling. Is it the greatest show ever, Chris?
I will probably go about where I was when I first reviewed this show, or the story. So,
You first impressioned it, or you mean when you read the
when I read the
manga,
the manhwa, whatever it's called.
Sorry, man. Gosh, there's like so much actuallys around this. It's like, I don't care. I accidentally said Chinese, not Korean. I accidentally said manga instead of manhwa. I don't care. It's just a manga. It's just what they call it as a manhwa. It's not like it's a big deal because you said manga and not manhwa. Actually, let me inform you, because I am in this exclusive information that nobody else has, that it's a manhwa. But no, it's Solo Leveling, or Oredake Level Up na Ken. This one was streaming on Crunchyroll and Netflix, I believe. Ran for 12 episodes. I think they've already leaked that. Well, some people have said there's leaks that they're going to do the whole thing, which that makes sense. But yes, it is coming back. They already have an announcement for second season. Nobody's surprised there. I think when this was first announced, we were pretty much assuming this was going to be their thing. They're going to put a lot into and hope for massive success. But yeah, A1 Pictures is a studio based on a web novel. Apparently not the manhwa. Because based on me reading the manhwa, yeah, it didn't seem like it was going based on the manhwa. I did enjoy reading the manhwa alongside it because there was some additional tidbits there. But yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff in this anime adaptation that I'm like, this must be from the novel, because like the whole thing with the island and this Choi guy wanting to go back there and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, that's not there. So that must be a novel thing. But I don't know. Genres are action, adventure, fantasy, and yeah, the music was by Swana Hiroyuki. That was a big plus. Even though I don't think they really utilized his music all that well. To be fair,
It hit here and there.
yeah, the epic fights obviously is where it really nails it. But I think overall, I don't think they really kind of utilized him for most of the scenes. But anyways, yes, for those that don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't know, this takes place in a world where suddenly portals started appearing. These gates were appearing everywhere, and beyond the gate itself are these monsters, these dungeons. And these monsters, certain people in the world itself would awaken and gain these special abilities, and they can basically fight those monsters because conventional weapons do not work. Always got to have that little line in the beginning of every one of them. The conventional weapons do not work. So yeah, people that awaken to being hunters, or they classify them as hunters, can go in there and defeat them and kill them, whatever. You can awaken to different things. Like, you can be a warrior, you can become a mage or an assassin, and whatever you're awakened to, your abilities is pretty much what you get. Like, there's no getting stronger. You can get smarter in how to use your abilities, which they kind of emphasize quite a bit in the series. But what your strength is that your awakening gives you, that's what you get. Now, there is cases of people known as reawakening where they can get additional attributes or change or whatever. But for the most part, what you get is what you get. And this Hunter Association basically ranks people based on their like overall mana. So like, the higher your mana is, the higher your rank can be. But yeah, they have to go into these little portals and kill the monsters and destroy the boss so that the portal itself closes. If they don't do it in time, essentially the monsters will be able to bust through the gate and infest the lands, which that kind of happens in the opening sequence. They have this entire island's taken over and they fail to defeat it. And so, yeah. So we follow the weakest, like the what people call the weakest of the weakest. Like, this guy is just terrible. Like, he has no skill. Like, his mana capacity is like near 0, and that is Sung. And Sung, as he's going to one of these dungeons, like one of these dungeon going intos, they eventually beat the last boss, and then they notice there's another passageway. And this is what they call a double dungeon. This is the case where some cases you can have not just the one boss, there's like a separate like wing that you can go down. And they kind of debate it for a little bit. Usually they're supposed to leave until the Hunter Association so they can kind of come back in and choose who goes in there, but they just kind of chose amongst themselves, let's go in there. We need more loot. This wasn't enough loot. So they go in there, Sung goes with them, and they get trapped inside this room where it kind of has this puzzle. Everybody starts dying. At some point, Sung figures out the puzzle, but then people don't trust him, or at least fear takes over them, so they flee. Sung's left behind, and it seems like he's dead. But then this prompt comes up that says, hey, do you want to be a player? Otherwise, you'll die. And so he accepts it. And then after that point, he wakes up and suddenly has these prompts in front of him that are giving him quests and have him doing different things. And when he does these quests and stuff, his stats are going up. He's able to like assign stat points and everything and gain skills. And it's obvious that nobody else can see this thing. He assumes that he's reawakened. And additionally, he's getting stronger, which again, like I mentioned earlier, that doesn't happen. So he's kind of an oddity in that regard. So he's just doing dungeons, hiding the fact that he's more powerful because he's afraid of people getting... He's afraid of the attention that he'll get because, again, he's unlike any other hunter. And he's all trying to do this in order to pay for his mother's medical bills, because with the gates came this kind of... kind of like a comatose kind of thing, this disease that causes people to basically be in a comatose state, and he has to pay for her medical stuff.
Kind of an overwhelmed by the mana or something like that the dungeons are causing.
It seems obviously related. So, but yeah, you also like you have these situations where people kill people in the dungeons to cover it up and steal all the loot, and he stops some dude for that. So now he's got his brother wanting to kill him, and like I said, there's a side story of this other guild that wants to go back to the island that's been overrun, and that's whole thing's happening. So, thoughts, review your final thoughts. Like, no more talking about this show after this point. This is the final deal. Even if season 2 comes, which is coming, no,
we're not talking about it.
Never again.
Heard. Well,
this is the final call. You can make a judgment based on a single season these days.
I mean,
you can never
I'll be very disappointed if this is the ending. So, no.
The insects have wings now? Done. It's like a total alien kind of ending with the egg opening up at the very end. It's not over.
It's kind of funny because kind of opposed to what Andrew is saying, because he's kind of reading it alongside of what he's watching, whereas I'm already pretty much I finished the entire story. It's kind of neat to see little tidbits kind of sprinkled ahead to kind of give people who have obviously read the manhwa, they kind of catch those little tidbits. You're not going to
review the manhwa while you're doing a review, are you?
I'm not planning on it.
You did that last time. What was that? No, that was the Harem in 11th Another World. I teased you for it.
So I do really appreciate the little teases that they're giving for those of us who've actually read it. Outside of that, the adaptation has been absolutely fantastic. I really did love this kind of the build up to this battle that they kind of set up for the ending, which is something that I was really kind of excited to see, and finally getting it when all was said and done. It was fantastic. I was really blown away. They really didn't hold anything back on that. I was really impressed with it. So all in all, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. So yeah.
Raving review, 10 out of 10 from Chris.
Yes, if we're taking it from the adaptation perspective, yes.
Crazy. Well, no, the show itself, how is it? Not the adaptation. It's a really good adaptation. Yeah, that's easy to say, but is the show good?
Yes. Okay. That would be part of the adaptation part, yes.
Okay, there you go.
It was good.
All right. Now you're saying good.
It was good.
He's changing it now. Now he's saying good.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic.
There you go. Fantastic. Now it's fantastic, not good. That's different. That's very different. No, I obviously putting aside the hype stuff, which me personally coming into the season with this show, I'm like, I'm not even going to let the hype bother me. Typically, I don't let the hype bother me. I've learned, shoot, years ago that you don't let hype get you. I just don't understand the idea of letting, like, I've run into people that are like, oh my gosh, this is so hyped up. I don't even want to watch it because I know it's going to be bad. And it's like, what does it matter if people are saying something? Why wouldn't you just watch the show and see if you like it? I don't understand that, like, you can't disconnect that, but that's just me. So again, I came into the show kind of just assuming that it's going to be a shonen show. Like, it's just going to be your typical standard shonen show. There's going to be a guy, he's going to be an underdog, he's going to get his butt kicked, he's going to go in the dungeons, he's going to become overpowered, and then he's going to go out and he's going to wreck things, and everybody's going to go, shock, he was the weakest and now he's super strong? He's so strong now! That whole thing. Basically what it turned into. Like, it literally is what I assumed it was going to be coming into it. But the key thing here is that it's not a bad thing. The show, if I can give it a criticism, it is, yes, don't go into the show expecting it's going to be mind-blowing. It is standard shonen. Yeah. This is standard guy is underdog, get strong. And I would even argue that there's a lot of plot holes because I think it's trying to be overly simple. Like, I made a big, massive joke early on when they first came in there and they investigated the whole Double Dungeon incident. This Hunters Association has this one group that investigates incidents inside the dungeons, and they literally came to Song, and they literally asked him no questions about the Double Dungeon incident. They said, yeah, we talked to this guy and this guy, which there's like, what, 3 people that survived, I think it was. They go, by the way, spoiler, first 2 episodes, they interview a couple people, and then suddenly it's like, but they're not going to ask Sung what he's seen? I mean, look at his body. Are you not going to ask any questions here? Everybody's seen it. And it's like, they don't ask him. They just literally go, here, touch this crystal. And they say, yeah, things happened, and you got back here. Touch the crystal. Okay, peace out. It's like, this is like the worst investigative group ever. And then getting into the later parts where you're literally having him sort of stepping out of line a little bit too much, I'll just say that, and nobody notices. And so when somebody does notice, I'm like, well, that makes sense because of what he's doing. He's literally putting a big sign out that says, hey, look at me. I'm trying not to keep my head down, but I am. Don't look at me. I'm very suspicious. And it's like, dude, you're being very suspicious by doing that. And so it's like, yeah, it feels in a lot of cases like it's a little bit too... It's not thinking things through a lot. But again, I'm not expecting it to think things through a lot. It's a story about an underdog that rises up and gets stronger. And when it does that, it works. This is a power fantasy type of idea here. This is the lowest of the low, the weakest of the weak. I think they nailed that. I think his presence as somebody that is extremely weak and has gone through some terrible stuff and, yes, had some people that were trying to keep him up. Like, we had Johei, I think her name was Johei, right? Johei, you had, oh my gosh, I loved Song. Song was so cool. Song was so cool, and it looked like based on the manhwa, they were trying to include Song a lot more into Sung's life as being like a mentor, which I thought was actually pretty cool. But this is like somebody that is trying to keep him propped up, and even though everybody else is kind of mocking him and looking down upon him, and it does that so well. Like I said, it shows his build-up and his drive to get stronger very well, and it does have a decent amount of struggle. Now, I will argue that a lot of the overcoming of certain situations, I feel it could do better. I just sometimes feel like I wish that he kind of failed right here. Like, I wanted him to fail here, because I feel like that would be really cool if he actually had a moment where his face gets rubbed in the dirt. Instead, it relies too heavily on the idea that when and again, this is me saying this, and I know full well that it's how it is with shonens. I feel like too often he overcomes things by either dumb luck or by screaming about the fact that he can't fall here. Like, it's like, holy crap, he is getting wrecked right here. It would be interesting to see if he actually fails right here, and then suddenly he just goes, oh, I can't lose! And suddenly he has super strength and he pushes things back. And it's like, at least in the cases where it's dumb luck, I can kind of go, okay, well, that's kind of cool in some regards. Like, I always love whenever a prompt pops up and says, you finished this thing, do you want to accept your reward? And suddenly you're like, holy crap, that just saved his butt. Those moments are still cool, but there is other moments where it's like, do something with this. He has a lot of things at his disposal. That aside, I think the thing that I like so much is that this show kind of does, this show in general, like I was saying, I'm watching the show here. This show does really well in gamifying a reality. I think that's really cool. Like, the one example I've given before is, like, I love how you can have these gates are showing up, and this is life. And so you can have, like, citizens that are walking by the street, and they suddenly go, gosh, why haven't they fixed that? Why haven't the hunters gotten rid of that portal yet? They almost look at it like it's a pothole. Like, why hasn't the government fixed this pothole yet? It's in the middle of the road. We can't use this road. It's not like, holy crap, behind that portal is literally monsters that will come out and shred us in half. Or, yeah, you even have the moments where people are out there with the stupid smartphones watching that this monster got out of a dungeon. It does well in kind of making it a believable environment within our world. And yes, technically, governments, working with businesses and the hunters associations to, yes, get these materials so they can use them for power sources and all that kind of stuff. All those political intrigues are going to still be kind of intertwined, but it doesn't do too much of it. Which, again, goes to what I was saying earlier. It makes sense. It's a shonen. They don't want to get too heavy on that stuff. They want to kind of gloss over it, keep it very simple, but know that it is a driving force for certain groups of people that will eventually probably get in Sung's way or benefit Sung in some way. Which, yes, technically they do have it at some point. Businesses do benefit Sung in some way, which is a cool way of kind of doing that as well. So it's like it's one of those things where it does all these things right. I don't think it inherently does anything wrong, but you can argue that sometimes it's too simple. I guess that's the best way to put it. And yes, I don't want to keep kind of blaming it on shonen because it's a really kind of easy out. But again, that's the vibe it has. It has that vibe of a Dragon Ball or a Naruto or something like that, where yes, you have it's more focused on so many things that it doesn't do certain things insanely in depth. Is the main key thing there. Even though I'm not saying that Dragon Ball and Naruto can't have like in-depth stories, because they do, but it's very surface level with a lot of stuff. Just to keep it simple, keep the character moving. He has a driving force. Mom needs help. Sister needs, college money. I need to keep doing this thing. This is what I've been given. I need to keep pushing, get stronger. I can't fall now. Crap, now I got this guy after me. Got to get stronger. I need to get into this dungeon right here. And it's a little bit tough, so I need to get stronger. There's always something kind of pushing him. But what I was getting to earlier is the gamification of the world, I think, is really well done. I like the quest system. I like how it's always... The theory I had early on, is I'm still keeping this theory, is that I think it's kind of one of those aspects that somebody on the other side of that portal is trying to use him, obviously. He's turning him into a player. Is it going to be a simple... There's a mastermind over there that's just puppeteering him just for humor? Or is it going to be a thing where they want Sung to be strong because they have somebody else on the other side they want to get rid of, and they're going to use Sung to do that? Why it is so cool is because every step that he takes, the prompts and the quests and everything are basically trying to nudge him forward. You can't die here. No. Kill them, because you can't die here. We need you. Keep pushing him. And I was joking about one of the later episodes. They literally had this point where, crap, I just got a whole bunch of money. There's a new weapon on the shop that's suddenly pretty close to what I totally have. I think somebody's probably giving me a little bit of handout here. It feels so like you would assume that this stuff is products of the system that he and only him can see. So it's obvious that everything that's happening in that system is a byproduct of whoever gave him the power. So it is easy to kind of come to the conclusion of somebody's manipulating Sung, but what's great about it is that Sung's not oblivious to this. He's fully well knowing, yeah, I think this system kind of wants to push me, get me stronger, and you know what? If they're going to use me, I'll use them. So I might as well get stronger kind of thing. So that stuff is cool as well. It's doing, like I said before, it's doing well enough for me. It's got, I think about the only weakness that I think the show, like truly, like a true weakness, like everything else my jokes about how the investigations are stupid, that a lot of this stuff can be surface level, a lot of these fights are won by him screaming. I can overlook all that stuff because I accept it for what it is. Like, this is what this type of show is. I was expecting it. That's what I got. The only real negative, like true negative I can give is I don't really care about anybody. Like, when I step back, I have no attachment to anybody. Like, this guy can die, I wouldn't give a rip. This character could die. Sung could die, and I wouldn't give a rip. I don't really care about any of the characters. They're not likable in any way.
I do think that a lot of that is just the nature of the solo leveling.
Right, I think it's so focused on Sung that it's hard to... But, to that point, why spend so much time showing me those other characters? And again, that was kind of the oddity that I noticed when reading the manhwa, is the manhwa maybe very rarely popped to anybody else. It was mostly always focused on Sung, and I think that's for a reason of the solo leveling.
Yeah,
but in the anime itself, it's jumping over to Jinwoo, so to see what he's talking to his family about. It's jumping over to Cha because she's getting recruited over here. It's jumping over to Choi over and over again because he's trying to set up this group to go to this island, which I'm actually pretty hyped for, honestly. It's jumping over to Woo. He's doing the investigation stuff. It's like it's focusing so much on these other characters. The only character I really care about is Song. Song is cool. I did like Song.
Well, what I was gonna say is a lot of that. And remember, I keep pointing out there's things being peppered in that are going to be tidbits for those of us who are actually aware of what's going on. So a lot of that is kind of prelude to things that are going to be happening very soon. So in a way, they're kind of trying to set up so that you understand what's going on, but at the same time, they're just flat out, like for instance, the guy that the big brother. When I first seen him on the screen, when I first seen him on the screen, I absolutely knew exactly who he was. But most people who are not really aware, when they're doing that interview with him, and he has no real attachment to Sung at that point.
You're talking about Baek. Baek was the one that did the interview. He was the one that's working with Choi. Baek and Choi are like comrades. Hwang was the one that wants to kill Sung.
Right. He's he was doing an interview too, didn't he? Or he was on the screen or something.
He was on the show. He was talking to his assistant, asking like what their laws are in Korea and stuff.
No, that was after the battle, or that was after he had already killed him. He popped up at one point.
The only interview they had in the show was Baek, which, like I said, they even mentioned that later on when Baek went to talk to Choi later on. He was telling him, like, why are you sending me these stupid interviews? I don't care about these interviews. And it was all because they want to keep the focus on that island alive, because they want the public's attention to be that this is a necessity that they actually take down the island, which I thought was actually a pretty good way of sort of, I guess, giving reason for that, which, yes, like we said, technically turns out to be a good thing in the end, as it showed at the very end of the season. That's actually a good thing they went there. But anyways, sorry.
But yeah, at any rate, there's a lot of things that I tend to be noticing. So I'm sure that there's a lot of other people who are, but at the same time, it's also giving you guys context of these are characters that are going to matter later on, and you may not understand why they matter, but they will matter at some point.
Like I said, I'm curious. I'm sure somebody's probably told me in the comment sections for my videos for this series. I didn't get a chance to check them out, but I'm certain it's probably a novel thing. Maybe the manhwa was just trying to be more simple and focus on his story. Maybe they thought the side stuff was too boring, and it just pops up later. Maybe. I'm not. The story itself is one of those that it's like, when I did my review of the manhwa itself, I like it for what it is. It is a very simple underdog story that kind of balances, and I said this before, it balances underdog and OP main character very well. Enough that you're sitting there going, yes, I'm pulling for you, but at the same time, you know that in the end, he's gonna overcome every situation. And I think it does that well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it for that. Some of the characters, I agree with you. It doesn't seem like much of anybody really mattered much until towards the latter half,
when other characters start really involving themselves. But even then, they're still they're still very out in the stratosphere, just outside where he can touch them, but they're not actually really affecting him that much.
There we go. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I think it's a solid series. Really enjoyed it. So it's not. I was not affected by the hype, I guess, is the key thing there that you gotta take in mind. Let's move on to Lv99 Villainess. I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the Demon Lord, or Akuyaku Reijo Lv99 Watashi wa Ura boss desu ga Mao de wa arimasen. This one is streaming on Crunchyroll, ran for 12 episodes, done by Jumondo. Source is a light novel, and genres are fantasy and romance. This one follows a girl who is isekai'd into an otome game. And the first episode opens up showing the actual protagonist of the otome game, which is Alicia. She is awakened to light powers, and then she's a commoner, but she was still being able to enlist into this school because we find out later, yeah, they got to kind of grab her talent and utilize her because they're needed. Her talents as a light user is required for them to defeat the Demon Lord that may eventually come. But then it kind of shows her meet all the different boys, usual Otome game stuff, and then she suddenly goes to this big ceremony they have for the entrance, and then suddenly we cut over to Yamilia, who is actually the main character, Yamilia Dolkness. And she is like the daughter of this family that is like an outer region noble family, and her parents left the inner city because they think they're the greatest thing ever, and they want to be with all the cool inner region area or inner kingdom nobles, and left her there also because it seems like there's a lot of prejudice against her because, yeah, Yamila was actually born with black hair. And this is bad because everybody with black hair is discriminated against because that's what the Demon Lord in the past, his hair was black. So they assume that she's probably going to be like a reincarnation of a Demon Lord. So yeah, she's isolated alone, but she realized very quickly at like the age of, I think it was 6 or something like that, or 5 or 6, she regains her old memories of her previous life and goes, oh yeah, I'm the hidden boss of this Otome game. Basically, in the Otome game, once she gets all of her friends, they go off and they defeat the Demon Lord once the Demon Lord appears. But if you do like certain things, like side quests and whatnot, you can unlock that once the Demon Lord is defeated, the hidden boss shows up, and that is who Yamila is. And so she's like, yeah, I'm going to stay away from them. I'm just going to do my own thing. She even figures that she wants to level herself up so that she can defend herself, but additionally so that if she has to, she herself can defeat the Demon Lord. So she goes out and starts doing like some crazy power leveling. Like she wears a necklace. Normally people wear like this protection necklace in case they get, lethally hurt, they can survive. She wears like a level up booster instead. And just
no,
goes,
I think
like,
it was the flute was the
yeah, that was a summon call.
alert,
Yeah, she gets that later on. But yeah, she just starts power leveling. And so yeah, coming back to this entrance ceremony, she was actually sent there by her parents. Like they enlisted her. They wanted her to meet a boy and marry a boy. But yeah, when she gets the entrance ceremony, everybody goes up to touch this crystal that gives them their level. Most people are like level 1, 2. I think the highest one was William, and I think he was 5 or 6 or something like that. Like that was shocking. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, oh my gosh! But yeah, he's been training his entire life. So is Yamilia. So is Yamila. She touched the thing, and yes, it shows 99. And so immediately everybody assumes, yeah, she's got to be tricking the system, cheating. Because, I mean, look at her hair. Look at her hair. Obviously, she's evil and she's tricking everybody. You're trying to show up William, aren't you? But yeah, she pretty much just kind of goes, it's not actually a lie. It's really true, but it is what it is. But yeah, they're like, it's fine. You'll be able to show your skill in the class, which, yeah, sure enough, she goes in class and she, like, uses, like, this spell on this one armor, which, like, the inner court mages have trouble destroying. She, like, throws this little fireball, like, dark fire magic at it, and it just melts. Which, yes, that's the other reason that everybody fears her and thinks that she's the Demon Lord is because not only is her hair black, but she also controls dark magic, which, yes, again, the Demon Lord uses dark magic. So there's a lot of prejudice against her, and that kind of plays out the entire thing is everybody's suspicious of her. They think that she's a Demon Lord. She's faking. She's cheating. All this kind of stuff. The entire time, she just wants to be left alone. Because, again, she doesn't want to get involved with Alicia. Doesn't want to, like, basically trigger flags that will lead to her being the actual hidden boss. So, Yeah, eventually she meets somebody nice, which was Patrick. Patrick was cool.
Patrick's cool.
And Eleonora was cool too, but she was always mean to Eleonora. She was so mean to Eleonora. I was like, girl, she just wants to be your friend. Yes, she wants to use you, but she wants to be your friend. Anyways, what's your review of Lv99 Villainess?
There wasn't enough Eleonora.
That's true. It
four
took
out of 10.
It took like 6 episodes before she even showed up. And the Edie makes you think that like she's gonna be Yamila's best friend.
So, all said and done, how do I feel about the show? Because I generally enjoyed it. There was a lot of kind of goofy quirks. I mean, I did like the kind of power leveling idea. Like Andrew said, Patrick and Eleanor are really great characters. I really enjoyed them. The main Alicia and the princes, they were kind of almost borderline annoying. I got the concept behind them, and I kind of wish that they were more prevalent. It not that I wanted them to be more annoying, it's just that they weren't significant enough to the story. The whole idea was that she was trying to avoid conflict, but I never really seen the characters, and maybe that was the point, is holding it off until the very end when they finally did figure everything out. But it seemed like there was just not enough conflict resolution with them at all. Instead, it was just Edwin randomly showing up and showing his butt for a few minutes and then walking away. Or William showing up for a minute and then showing his butt and walking away. They just generally were annoying. They not even kind of a... Yes, at some point Edwin did finally reflect on things. But in general, it was more about Yumilia and her relationship with Patrick and Eleonora that was actually the more kind of shining beacon in the show.
Shiny.
Shiny. And I did
find the main protagonist and the male interest to be, thankfully, technically the weakest part of the show, because I didn't really... Very quickly, they felt so tropish, probably to the point. They felt very tropish and to the story, but I was hoping that there'd be something more interesting done with them.
Yeah.
And everything that I predicted early ended up happening with them, and they didn't really do anything that was kind of shocking or interesting. In the end, it's kind of like... The main key point for me that's frustrating to add on to you is that more of... They did enough with them that I was fine with, because I didn't really want them in the show, because I like the idea of focusing on Yamila.
Right.
But at the same time, their presence in the show was too often without doing anything with them.
Right.
So every time they showed up, I'm like, okay, do something. You're not going to do anything with them. Then get them off the screen.
The only one that they actually did anything with was Alicia. And that one was kind of interesting. I mean, and I don't know if you want to talk about that because that was kind of it is kind of a cool little quirk that this story has. But at the same time, it wasn't enough to really kind of push the story forward. It was like, okay, well, that's interesting. You could dig into that. That might be interesting. Look, people, dig into this. but no, the one little quirk that is in this particular show, I didn't really feel like they dug into it enough to actually make it worth even bringing it up. So all said and done, it was a decent, not my favorite of the Villainous shows, but it was good.
Yeah, for me, this show is definitely like up there as one of my favorite Villainous shows. I just, for me, like Chris, I agree with pretty much everything he says with the story wise, and I agree with that stuff. But for me, it doesn't matter, because I feel like for me personally, this show is just, it's a comedy. Like its focus is the punchlines, and the punchlines I think is where this show itself exceeds. Like it excels at, and that is really in the comedy around Yamila. the whole shtick with this show, like I said, is from the very beginning to the end is, well, it evolves. Early on, the joke is Yamila not wanting to be involved with anybody, and everybody wanting to be involved with her. They think that she's a cheater. Well, what's her response? I don't really care. Oh, you cheated because you wanted to make William look bad. Go look, Alicia needs help. Yeah, right. She does need help. All right, later, guys. Like, she doesn't care. Like, she doesn't want to get involved. I think it was a really great comparison that a lot of people had early on when the show is like, she's literally Nanahoshi from Mushoku Tensei if she was actually OP in another world. She has kind of that, I don't care. Your drama, I don't care. That's like her personality. Like, I love this one scene where this queen is literally saying, here is a grand opportunity. Please take it. And her response is literally, no. And it's like such a, like, it's so great how they portray it too, because it's like, it's Yadasu. And like, she literally, you have the queen is talking, so, you know, here's this opportunity. Yadasu, like, literally the sound kicks up because they wanted to emphasize how much she was projecting her voice of almost like disgust. Like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. I love her, like, I don't care. Again, later, like, it was literally the first episode, if I remember correctly. They have this whole situation where literally the prince comes in and says, I've got you now. I have proof that you are a cheater, and I got the kicking out notice. We're going to get you out of here. You're going to get kicked out of here. And by the way, you're probably going to have to leave the entire country. What's her response? Okay, yeah, sure. That actually sounds like a good idea. I guess I can go to another kingdom. And it's like, it's so great how she just doesn't give crap. Her whole joke is, I give no Fs. And I love that. I love that idea of how much drama people are trying to take to her, and she just doesn't care. And there's a side of me that kind of relates to her, because in a lot of cases when a drama is coming towards me, I'm like, I just don't care. Do you? I'm gonna be over here. And then, like I said, that pretty much carried the show for me. I think they nailed the punchlines. Her personality is so much fun. I love her to death. Her voicing was fantastic. The show is not the greatest looking show. It's absolutely carried by at least nailing those punchlines with her expressions and stuff. About halfway, maybe a little later, they do kind of shift the joke from her being, get away from me, I don't care, to more of her kind of, in her own way, trying to help people. And then that becomes its own joke because, yeah, how did she become really powerful? How does she heal somebody with dark magic? All these like things suddenly become the joke in that everybody's terrified of her, but she's now having to help them and they just want to get away from her. And so, yeah, when like somebody spars with her, she literally goes, okay, here we go. And then they get flown like 500 feet. And then she goes over there and goes, I'm so sorry. Hold on, let me heal. And like, no, it's okay. Don't heal me, because it's so horrendous. These tentacles coming out and licking the wounds until they heal. It's of course it's like mosaic, so it looks even worse. Yeah. It's like the whole cockroach thing or vomit. It's just fantastic seeing her like just pure blank expression trying to help the situation. And I think a side of me almost kind of feels bad for her very quickly, because I think one of the coolest, to add to your discussion on the story, I think one of the more fascinating things about the story is sort of hinting at this possibility of her becoming the villainess. Like her becoming the bad guy, I guess is the best way to put it. Her becoming the hidden boss. She does sort of at some point realize very quickly, literally within like the first 10 minutes, maybe this is why the hidden boss is the hidden boss. Because people hate me for my hair color, because people hate me for the fact that I have dark magic, which I didn't choose, these are the reasons why everybody hates this person. Oh, that's probably why they're a bad guy. So it kind of plays into things that a lot of the other Otome game types of shows have done in the past that I really enjoy, which is specifically the villainess. Which Eleonora is the villainess, classified in the show, in the actual Otome game. But it's still the same concept. Why does the bad girl become the bad girl? In a lot of cases, like with the Otome Game is Tough for Mobs, that show did it very well in showing, yeah, I understand why she turns that way. This was her life. Her entire life was for this moment. And now you're saying, I don't want you anymore because this new cute little girl showed up and she's my new love interest. It kind of sucks. You kind of I get why this chick's kind of mean to the female lead character, because she showed up out of nowhere and took her life away. She spent the last 17 years of her life that this was going to be my life with this prince, and then this this hussy shows up.
Yeah.
This little cute little klutzy girl shows up that needs help from the brave prince to save her in the school.
Thieving
it
cat.
kind of thieving echo. It plays in that whole thing, and I do like that. It was like a very that played throughout the entire series, and that's what Patrick is so great. Is Patrick is the first person to really kind of say, no, they're kind of wrong. I mean, he gets the crap beat out of him whenever he trains with her, but he still understands. No, she's a good person. She can't control her strength. She can't literally hold back. So at least it did have like some, nice little moments in there story-wise for Yamila. And a lot of that for me had to do with Yamila and the discrimination against her and stuff like that. But yeah, the thing that kind of always carried it for me was definitely the comedy and the comedy around her. I think that stuff carried it. Which to the whole point that we're making, I think we both kind of agree on. The only part that I didn't like about this series was the last, 2 episodes. Because that's when, yes, there's still comedy in there here and there, but it goes straight focusing on what we pretty much have already covered is kind of the issue of the show. And so the last 2 episodes were kind of just throwaway for me. I guess a good ending, but I could care less. It wasn't that interesting. They tried to do something with Alicia, but in the end, it wasn't my driving force. My driving force was Yamila Dolkness, who is absolutely hilarious. They nailed her character. She's one of my favorite female lead characters of a series, and that's what pretty much carried the show for me, despite the fact that it wasn't the greatest looking show, and the story was okay. The story overall was okay. It was a good twist to the Otome game type of stuff. I just wish you didn't focus too much on the Otome game stuff. that was my only issue. But yeah, it's a solid for me. Just don't expect a grand episode 11 and 10 or 11 and 12 for me. That it?
Yep.
That's your thoughts? What about Dr. Elise? Did you watch Dr. Elise?
Dr. Elise, yeah.
You did watch Dr. Elise? Elise? It was something
Rose, about a lamp,
wasn't it?
Something about a lamp.
No, Elise was the Rose one, wasn't it? I was editing our last review podcast, and I immediately popped in my head Rose when we were talking about the 7th loop. And I was like, this always happens. We record the podcast, and me and Chris will get stuck on something like, oh, is it this, or was it this? Or what was the name of that one show, this? And when I go to edit it, it comes to my mind immediately. It's just the problem with doing recordings and stuff like that. You're too busy talking or conversing, and you can't spend the time to really kind of search your database. And it always comes when I go to edit. And I immediately thought of Rose. But no, I think Rose was Dr. Elise. I think they called her Rose when she was doing her side stuff, wasn't it? Now I'm going to... Andrew, that's editing this. You'll figure it out. Now I'm gonna look it up this time. Let me get through the introductions first. Dr. Elise, the royal lady with the lamp, which we still don't know what the lamp thing is. We talked about that.
No. Somebody pointed it out. It has to do with a very important doctor.
Well, I know there's a reference out of there, but you still have to reference it in the show, right? Yeah, because I remember seeing that, but what does it have to do with Dr. Elise here?
Just because she's considered a great doctor.
Oh, so she's lighting the way or whatever kind of thing. Yeah, all right. Anyways, Gekkai Elise. This one is streaming on Crunchyroll. Ran for 12 episodes. Maho Films, which is kind of surprising. Maho Films has been pretty bad lately, and this seemed to be a good adaptation for once for them. It didn't look too bad. But yeah, it's based on a manga, comedy, fantasy, romance, and this one follows Elise. Yeah, it says Rose on there. I even wrote it on there.
Can you fix my screen?
What's wrong with your screen? You don't. That's not big enough for you. Is it on?
There you go.
Is it on? Okay? I'll make sure. He, for some reason, cannot handle a screen this big. Anyways, yes, this follows a when the show opens, there's a doctor in not specifically Japan. She's flying around all over the place. She's a very well-known doctor. It does imply that she was born in Japan because the streets look like it was from Japan. But anyways, when she was very young, she lost her parents, and then she devoted her life to becoming a doctor. And there's a good reason for this. And she eventually grew up to be a very famous surgeon. Everybody knew her. She was very popular. She's basically spent her entire life going around and saving people's lives. There's a reason why she devoted her life to being a doctor, even at the young age of it was 3 or something like that. that's because this is her second life. Her first life was in this other world where she grew up. It was like very kind of Victorian style. She grew up in that world, and she was like the daughter of this count or whatever. And at some point she was, because she threw a fit, she was wed off to the prince of the kingdom itself. She became this empress that just became a very nasty person that led to a lot of people losing their lives. And she regrets it. She died on they basically burned her at the stake. Even her husband just turned his back on her, claiming that it's his fault that all these people died. I think even her brother was kind of pointing out his disgust as well. But yeah, she dies, and then she was reborn in our world, became the surgeon so that she could do right, kind of
Make amends.
Make amends, yeah. Redeem herself, make right from all of her wrongdoings, and then, yeah, at some point she gets in a plane wreck. And helps all the people at the crash site before she bleeds out and dies. But then she's sent back to her old life. As she's like bleeding out, she's like, I wish I could see my family again from my previous world. And sure enough, she gets sent back to like right before, like she was sent back into the time where she was grounded in her room because she threw a fit that she wanted to marry the prince. So immediately when she goes to see her family, like, oh crap, I gotta go see my family. I haven't seen them in so long. Is it that time? And then she goes in there and she's crying because she can see her family again. And her dad's like, ah, crap. The mom's like, see, you were too hard on her. And the dad's like, don't worry. We talked to the king. The prince will marry you. And she's like, oh, about that. No, I don't want to marry them anymore. I don't think that's a good idea. So yeah, even in this new life, she just wants to avoid doing wrong that she did before, which was getting married to the prince and everything. She even apologized to the king, says, I'm sorry, I'm not worthy to become the empress. I'm going to focus on becoming a doctor because it's something I want to do. And so the king, and kind of humoring the idea, because he obviously knows that something's changed in her. She's acting different. She's acting much more formal. She even helped them kind of realize there might be some kind of oddities about this upcoming war that's coming up. And so he kind of humors and says, okay, how about this? We'll keep the marriage going. If you can become a doctor by the time you become of age, then you can become a doctor. If you pass the exam and everything and become a doctor, I will cut off the marriage and everything. If you don't pass that exam, then you'll marry my son. And so she goes and starts to do a lot of kind of in-house work at a hospital to kind of, them testing the waters for her and everything. She eventually does the exam and everything. So yeah. And yeah, at the same time, the prince is taking a lot of notice of her. Like, she even helps like her father with like this whole thing about his blood pressure and stuff like that. And, or helps his father, the king, with his blood pressure and everything. And then, yeah.
Diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this show, absolutely brilliant. I was not expecting that I would like it as much as I did. I actually really, I don't know how to explain it better than Elise is absolutely a fantastic character. She is just a down and dirty, just enjoyable character to follow. She really does truly enjoy what she's doing, and how this kind of just plays out as all these characters are slowly kind of warming up to her is just really well done. And I don't know how to explain it better than that. The character art is fantastic. The storyline, overall, really brilliant. Outside of a occasional just kind of droning on about this medical technique or that, which is kind of barely an annoyance. All in all, she carries this show. She is brilliant, and I really do love it.
Yeah, I think the medical stuff was pretty well surface level. Like, it wasn't too heavy on the jargon and everything like that. It keeps it very simple. I will admit that, like, the only side of that whole thing that I kind of dislike is that there's so much emphasis put on just these random meetings we jump to where somebody goes, my gosh, she's a genius. They figured this out? Who figured this out? They must be a genius. And it's like, after like the third time they cut to some random guy of the medical association or something like that freaking out about this stuff, I'm like, please stop. I gotta meet this person. They gotta be a genius. Who is the genius that made this thing and this report? And it's like, okay, I don't care anymore. No, I think the only kind of I agree with Chris. I think this show is really fantastic. I had a little bit of hesitation coming into it because, like I said earlier, Maho Films. But I think they kept things together decently well. But yeah, I definitely do think that Elise kind of carries the show for me. I think she's an absolutely fantastic character. I think they actually handled the prince decently well. It kind of goes from that idea of him not... It didn't really imply that he didn't want to marry her. Like, he even says at the very beginning, she's like, I'm sorry to burden you with this. And he's like, what makes you think that I didn't want to marry you? And again, it kind of plays into a little bit that idea of there being a little bit of misconceptions as to what she actually did in her previous life, because she was supposedly nasty. It really, I think the only kind of big negative I can give this show is it didn't really give us a real clear idea of what did she do. Like, I think we talked about in our first impressions about that. It's like, what exactly did she do that was so evil? Yes, she was selfish, but it didn't seem like she was a nasty person. And it almost makes it out like the joke that me and Chris always have with the character that's super nasty to somebody is like, who did you murder? And this is the same case of that. Like, who did you murder, Elise? Like, what did you do? It only kind of implies this idea that she was just kind of very, she failed in certain duties, or at least she kind of, I guess, had some selfishness to her that maybe have distracted people. Because in the end, Linden was the king, or the emperor, king. Right. He was the king. So what exactly did she do to get people killed, unless she, I guess, sidestepped him and got into the funds of the kingdom and destroyed everything? It never was very clear in that whole regard, other than her kind of making his life a living hell, in a sense. It seemed like he wasn't too happy with her around. Like, she would go through a lot of efforts for, like, making tea or whatever, and show up, and he's like, I only married you because my king, my father. I don't want to get near you or whatever. So I guess that's the only real kind of massive plot hole, because obviously, again, she dies going to another world, and she literally, from a toddler, starts hitting the books. Like, even in the orphanage, I'm hitting the books, and I'm going to become the greatest surgeon ever. What did she do? I did like the flashbacks, because in a lot of that stuff is the driving force for what she does. Like with Julian was like, she's the part of this other family that they're like, her older brother, whatever, their family could technically take this one crown. And so there's this faction war technically happening. And so all of Elise's family hates their family, and all of Julian's family hates Elise's family. And so, yes, when she was growing up, when Elise was younger, she treated Julian terribly. Like, threw her in the water. Again, not that bad, Elise. But it did kind of do well in kind of having it show that, be why Julian is so fearful of Elise. And then to have Elise kind of go, I am so sorry I did that to you. And then Julian's like, what the hell are you talking about? Stop acting like that. You're supposed to be mean or whatever. And then Elise kind of shows her truthfully that, no, I've changed. I don't want to do that no more. I'm sorry for that. And she understands that how much Julian loves the prince. So it's kind of playing all that stuff. So I do like the backstory. The king stuff was great. This idea that no matter how horrible I was, the king always stood by me all the way to the end. I want to save him. It does well in using those past history snippets to drive an emotional impact for the current time. But I never got, what the hell did you do? Yeah. That was so bad. Yeah, Julian. Other than be a mean person.
Julian and the king are easily two of my main key kind of things that I have a lot of fun with the show. Julian was absolutely fantastic. Her kind of,
I feel so bad for her.
Yeah, using Julian as a way to show the difference between the two Elises is absolutely fantastic. But one of the cool
gave
things,
her the cookies, and the family wouldn't eat them. She even gave me cookies. They're like, should you be eating those?
But the king is one of those really fun tidbits.
The king was really cool. I loved the king.
The king always seen what was effectively Elise's good side in her past life, and that's one of the things that I brought up when we were talking about it before, is like, obviously he knew of what she was doing. If she was doing something bad, the king knows. But he's still seen something good in her, and so I really want to know, and that's one of the things that me and Andrew was mentioning earlier is, what was it that she did that was so bad? If the king stood by her all the way
And her
until
entire
his final,
family stood behind her.
yeah.
That's the frustrating thing. So that's like my major kind of issue. I can make a comical joke. That's like the stupidest statement. I can make a joke that is technically a negative to the series, is that I would stay far away from Elise. And so maybe this is why everybody hated her in her previous life and that she wants to do good this time. Any person she walks by is going to have a medical emergency.
Yeah.
This girl will literally like walk into a room and somebody has a massive medical emergency. Even if she's just going down the road, somebody will have a massive medical emergency.
Maybe that's why the prince gave up on her.
That's what I'm saying.
He's like, there's just too many people dying around you all the time. Exactly. We're gonna have to just.
the father probably died because she was around you. But yeah, it is one of those things, like, if they're having a party, I'm like, who's gonna croak over? Okay, so this old lady literally croaked over, and she's got to cut open her neck and stick a tube down her or something like that. It feels like she has a curse about her.
It all makes sense now. That's why she was so big on getting into surgery. There you go.
She got a curse. She's cursed. But that is kind of comical, but it makes sense for it. And this is a problem that most of these types of shows have and stories have. When the story is about a character who is like a medical genius or somebody that is just a doctor in general, it's just like every single one of those MD TV shows. It just seems like whenever somebody walks into a coffee shop, somebody's going to have a medical emergency at the very first 2 minutes of the show because they have to have this set up for the rest of the episode, is saving this person in the middle of a coffee shop because they're a doctor, and that's what they do. So putting that aside, how kind of comical that is, everything else about the show is really solid regarding Elise's story specifically. I can't say that anybody outside of maybe Julian and the king and what they did with the prince is all that interesting. Like even like Michael, which they put so much emphasis early on about Michael, and they literally did nothing really with him. There's so much focus on Elise as the character, and that stuff is solid because it is her story. Basically trying to... It's so funny. It's not so much about her proving herself. It's always about the initial goal, which is, I want to save as many lives as possible. Now, yes, there is in order to continue to save as many lives as possible, I need to prove myself to the king by getting this exam done. But the first and foremost is that the people in front of me, I will help. So even when they send her to like the worst wing of this hospital, this is like the area for the people that don't have enough money or something like that, or there's just people that are being discharged or whatever. She goes in there and she literally, first things first, clean and sanitize because this place is a mess. It's nasty. She's going around. She's helping people, helps this guy out with bed sores. And then immediately, even after everything's kind of settled and they have this after discussion, you still see her doing these little odds and ends that are all about helping people. A great example. Okay, this person's being taken care of. She has a little bit extra time. What does she do? I'm going to go outside and I'm going to take care of all the vines on the outside of the window that the gardener doesn't want to handle, the hospital doesn't want to handle, because this person needs some natural lighting in there to be comfortable. Like she goes above and beyond even what she needs to do with just her regular surgeries. And that kind of shows the heart of the character, which is the idea that her sole focus is on that. Now, this could be something that they get into later on in the story. I don't know. I was kind of hoping at some point, and this is kind of a little bit of a leap off of our previous joking / criticism about her hating herself so much. I do hope that if this ever gets another season, or maybe in the story itself, that eventually they do get into the idea of, are you really that bad yourself, or are you your own worst enemy? Because I think that could have been a really fantastic story bit, is to get into, why do you hate yourself so much? Or, again, it could technically get into what she actually did to warrant her being so dead focused on this. It's not to say that she doesn't have, like, agency outside of, I just need to help people. Because eventually, yes, she does get interest in a male character. She does have a desire to help Julian. She has a desire to help the king. She has a desire to help people. She even, first arriving there, writes down all this stuff that she needs to do because of what's to come, which technically we never really got into. That's another kind of plot hole, I guess, later on in the story. She's like, takes this whole time to write down everything that's coming up. There's an epidemic coming up. And I thought the epidemic was actually going to be the big, like, climax of this season. That never came up. She writes down all this crazy stuff that's supposed to come up soon. She did technically offset one of them, which is that her brother was supposed to go to this war, and she did help with that situation. So she did do one of them. But there is a lot of threads throughout the story that they're already kind of setting up, which now that I think about it, does kind of make me hope that we get a season 2, because it didn't go very far as much as I want to.
Yeah.
I think this season's end was a really good ending, though, because it does have a really good plot point for her and the king itself. Like, her whole thing with the king was kind of settled in a way, but sort of not. And I thought it was a really sweet way to conclude it. So it does have a really good ending for this season. But if you think about it, there is a lot of stuff left undone. And they did spend quite a bit of time hinting at things that weren't done. So that is kind of an upset there. But it was still a pleasant surprise for the season. I did really enjoy it. And yeah, I kind of want more.
Yep.
So there you go. Dr. Eliza. Dr. Eliza. Or Rouge. Let's move on to bottom tier character Tomozaki. Or Brain. Bottom tier character Brain. This one is second stage, by the way, the second season. Jokochara Tomozaki-kun's second stage, straight on Crunchyroll for 13 episodes, done by Project Number 9, based on a light novel. For those unfamiliar with this one opens up with a Fumiya Tomozaki, and the first season is basically him being a geek gamer that hates society because he doesn't try to get himself out there or meet people because he feels like real life is cruel and an unfair video game. So even if he tried, he would never win at the game of life because he was dealt a low bottom tier character, like the title leads you to believe. Well, he ends up playing his game, which is kind of like a Smash Bros. Game. He eventually meets this other person that's playing the game, which you kind of find out later is Hinami. And Hinami is like a really good gamer like he is. Like she can't beat him, but she's like number 2. But she kind of offers to him to show him that the game of life is actually fun, and shows him that even he can be a top tier character. He just has to try. So she proceeds to give him a bunch of different missions that he has to go and do in order to better his real life character, basically. So it's things like, say hello to a girl, or to, crack a joke with a guy that he doesn't know, or, ask somebody for a selfie. Just these like very menial tasks, easy tasks that will over time improve his social skills with people because he just sucks at communication and everything. So it's all these like challenges and exercise that he's doing that will improve him socially to the people around him. And sure enough, as the season first season kind of concludes, is that's pretty much been succeeded at this point. He's getting popular. He's looking better. He's more about his appearances and everything like that. So he's getting up there. He's got plenty of girls that he can choose from. They kind of hinted something at the end of the first season, which I was hoping is what they were going to jump right into with the second season. Didn't do that. So I don't know why they teased at the end of the first season. That never got into that. The second season really kind of focuses on, the very first half is focused on not new character. One of the students in their class gets jealous of another student because she liked this boy, and then they kind of find out this other girl is going out with the boy. And that's Erika, and Erika starts to become a bully. That eventually gets targeted to Tama, who is just trying to tell her to chill out. So that girl starts bullying Tama. Tama goes to Tomozaki, realizing that Tomozaki has changed, and wants him to help her change too. And that kind of turned into one of those things where, yes, technically the first season was Hinami helping Tomozaki get better. Now it's almost like him trying to do the same thing to help Tama, which is kind of a cool concept there. But it all leads up to hopefully resolving the whole issue with the bully. The second half of the show, the episode, kind of focuses. I mean, they brought it up beforehand, but it focuses in on this one major task, which is that Tomozaki has to choose one of two girls to ask on a date. Like, that's the big challenge for the remainder of the season, is choose one of these two girls to ask on a date. And it starts to get into the idea of, like, but what if I don't love either one of them? Just do it anyways. You need to do this to kind of get that next step. So it does kind of get into that whole question mark of, does he even like one of these two girls, or does he just do it in order to improve himself? All that kind of stuff kind of brings up. At the same time, they're doing this big festival, so it's getting the festival play stage thing they were going to set up to do. There. I wasn't sure about the first season when I watched it. Like, I was not liking the very beginning of it. I felt like it was kind of cheesy with its concept, but over time I kind of fell in love with it. I like a lot of the characters that this series has had. I think the writer is really good with, I think, moment to moment character writing. I don't like some of the character logic that the writer has with his characters, because, like, it gets super psychoanalyzing at times where it just feels super cheesy. Like, with, like, the climax moment of the first half of this second season with this bullying incident, it kind of gets to the moment where suddenly things start happening, and then suddenly out of nowhere it's jumping to, like, Tomozaki, and he's, like, hyper psychoanalyzing the characters on the spot. And it's like, nobody thinks like this. Like, this is one of those moments where, who thinks like this? That nobody thinks like that. It felt super cheesy, and some of the characters in the moment, especially Hinami, it's like, why is nobody turning to her and going, "What, you sound like a robot? Who says that?" It gets into one of those kind of moments for me. But that aside, I think overall it was a really solid first half. But I think what my enjoyment for the writer has always been is, like I said, is the characters. But outside of that, I think the later part of the first half, I think, kind of kept going up and up. It's like one of those moments. It's one of those kind of writers that, as you get comfortable with their style, I guess is what is the best way to put it. Once you get comfortable with their style, you start to understand how they tick, and it just kind of works. Like, everything starts to kind of come together. Like, the character writing is kind of carrying it, and then suddenly you go, I kind of like this premise. I like this idea. And like I mentioned, at the later part of the first season, when it started getting into Hanami and they presented, like, some really cool kind of flipping of the script at the very end of the first season, I was like, holy crap, you better have a second season, because I would love to see this kind of unfold. Because the idea of the finale that I'm talking about here is, at some point, Tomozaki himself turns the tables and says, no, what's presented to Tomozaki is that this is how it is, you're succeeding, but you can't enjoy the game. The idea is that he thought that he couldn't play the game of life because he was a bottom tier character. He was dealt bad cards. And Hinami proved to Tomozaki, no, I'm going to show you how to be a top tier character no matter what. You just have to improve yourself. He does that. He basically beat the game. Now, what happens at the end there is that he's presented with this idea that, but I've been doing it for so long, and I've proven to myself that you can't enjoy the game. What Tomozaki's mindset is, no, I thought I wouldn't like it, but I've actually succeeded in the game of life, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm going to prove to you that you can enjoy it at the same time. That was a challenge. Again, never touched in the second season. And that really bugged me, because what I got instead was that, yes, that first half was okay. I actually enjoyed it. I loved seeing Tama's character and her actually changing. Because again, it's similar to Tomozaki himself. It is somebody realizing, I'm not fitting in, and I realize that I'm off-putting to people, and I want to fix that. So Tama's coming to Tomozaki to basically say, how do I do better in a group? How can I help? How can I make it to where people don't have to worry about me? Really is what it is. How can I make it to where, specifically, Nanami does not have to worry about me? And that was cool. I liked that whole bit. The second half, I didn't care for. I thought the second half felt, I don't know. There was bits of the second half that I did like. I liked how they were kind of jumping around to different characters and trying to tell this kind of story from multiple perspectives. But I think the overall the story itself felt a little bit too. It felt too typical. I even mentioned that. I may have mentioned it in my first impressions. There was at some point, probably halfway through this season, that I realized, yeah, I could see where this is going. It is one of those kind of rom-com types of shows where I just knew exactly where it was going to go, and I'm like, all right, just get it over with. Just rip the Band-Aid off. I know exactly what this ending's going to do. It's technically been telegraphing it since like the first season, where exactly it was going to conclude at. I'm not sure. I think this is the story. I don't think there's anything else to adapt. I know they're writing a side story, but if this is the whole manga, unless it's maybe caught up with the manga, maybe they have more coming out. If it is, again, I go back to that first season. Where did that whole plot point at the end of the first season go? If that's the end, where the hell did that go?
Unless it was anime original.
That's what I keep thinking. I keep thinking that. I can't remember if I went and checked the manga to see if it was in there. I want to say that I wanted to. I don't remember if I did. Maybe I'm just dreaming, or maybe I'm misremembering that I actually looked into it and found it. I want to... No, I think what I did is I went back and I checked the last episode to make sure it said what it said. That's what I did. That's why it's fresh in the mind, because I actually went back to that last episode and went, where is it? Maybe I read that wrong. And no, sure enough, it's literally in the scene. So that's weird. But yeah, overall, I've really enjoyed the 2 seasons. I think it's a really cool story. I think, again, the thing that kind of drives the most is that the studio nailed the characters. Like, the girls are super cute. I enjoy a lot of the personalities. I think the overall concept of the series is great. It gets cringy now and then with the writing. A lot of the dialogue is like, who the hell even says that? And with a straight face. I don't care for the ending. It's okay. Like, it's a good wrap-up, but I didn't really personally care for the ending. But because it felt too obvious. It felt very kind of flat, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, it didn't feel fulfilling. It didn't feel like clever. It felt so kind of forced. But it was a fine wrap up in the end, though. So I hope we get another season, because like I said, there's still kind of a big, massive WTF there. But again, yeah, but why would they do that as an original and not actually follow through with it? We're going to make an original scene here where he literally challenges the other person and we're not going to even touch it. And they didn't even mention it. Like, they didn't even mention it. Like, I was half expecting, like, at least within the first 6 episodes, he goes, oh yeah, by the way, about that challenge. No, literally, it's never talked about again. It's so weird. But yeah, I enjoyed the series in the end, though. It was a solid series. Gushing Over Magical Girls. Let's do some gushing. Are you ready for gushing, Chris?
I don't know. Kind of low energy at the moment.
You're not gushing right now?
Not yet.
You got a whole glass of gushing right there.
I know, but if I pick up the glass, it'll start clinkling and making all kinds of noise.
And then you hit a microphone.
Yeah,
and then you have to readjust the microphone. Yeah, Gushing Over Magical Girls, or Maho Ako. Was it Ako, I think was the short for it? Something like that. Good? Good?
Yep.
Okay. I'm doing it without looking. I literally have a monitor facing the other direction, so I have to do it, like, by memory. I guess I could just use the commands. Commands are easier. But no, Gushing Over Magical Girls, or Maho Shoujo ni Ako Garete. This one streamed on High Dive, ran for 13 episodes, done by Asahi Productions, based on a manga, comedy, ecchi, Maho Shoujo, or the genres. And the director is Atsushi Otsuki, who did To Love Ru. It's a telling thing there. Anyways, yeah, this one opens up with, it's a world, it's in Japan. There is the existence of this evil organization, Enormita. And Enormita is sending baddies to attack the people, and the magical girls show up to defeat the baddies. But yeah, the Tres Magia's main focus for us is this group of 3 magical girls that fight all the baddies. While an onlooker looks upon them in admiration, and that is Utena. Utena absolutely loves magical girls. Ever since she was young, she's been captivated by the wonders of magical girls. Well, one day as she's looking upon this fighting that the Tres Magia is doing, this little mascot shows up. This mascot from the Enormita shows up and says, hey, you like them? You want to be a magical girl? And then he immediately, like, casts this thing on her and transforms her into a villain. She technically is a magical girl, just not the good magical girl. She's the Enormita bad villain person. And immediately, yeah, following this, he ends up kind of basically like blackmailing her with like footage of her transforming into this evil form, blackmailing her, saying that I'm going to post on social media to all my followers, which is a lot of followers, by the way. All my followers, you transforming. What are your mother going to think of you being lewd like that in the middle of public location? And so it's forcing her to have to fight the magical girls, which, yes, very, very quickly upon fighting the magical girls, she realized that it's not that she likes magical girls, is that she likes seeing the magical girls fight. She likes to see the many faces of magical girls, and that typically includes her slapping everything with her whip that makes it come to life. So she'll smack like the vines, and the vines will vine down the magical girls, and then Venna basically tells her to slap the magical girl, so she keeps slapping them, and then she actually likes it, and then she realizes she really, really likes it, and that becomes like this new kind of BDSM-ness waking up inside of her. And then eventually she meets the other villains of Enormita, quickly wins them over, and then, yeah, fights the Tres Magia on a daily basis. Thoughts? Review?
This
Impressions?
show looks great. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. All the goofiness aside, I mean, I know that Andrew's going to do it, so I might as well just get it out of my system. Utena is freaking amazing. She is absolutely, she makes the show by far and away. I really, really want more of this show. If there is ever any more characters that are similar, this voice actress absolutely needs to do those characters. She pulled it off. She had both the awkwardness, the slowly getting excitedness. She had she just pulled it off. She's fantastic voice actress, and I absolutely loved it. Story, I kind of want to see more. It seems interesting. There's a lot of weird things going on in there that I definitely want them to continue expounding on. But yeah, loved it. Looked great. Had fun. Great show.
I think the thing that I like most about Gushing Over Magical Girl is, yes, obviously, Utena's Seiyu. She's incredible, and she's literally done nothing. I think she's in, like, High Speed Atole this season, which, like, why didn't this person get, like, 1 million roles after this role is beyond me. Maybe she'll get, like, some side characters that haven't been announced for certain shows or something later on, but, yeah, she's incredible. She literally nails the character. I just love that kind of... You can feel the anxiety in her speech, like her hesitancy, like the jitter in her voice as she's kind of like nervous about something. But then as she gets more excited, you get that more kind of strength in her voice. And then eventually it gets to that point where something just happens that just absolutely thrills her. And then suddenly she's just like, yes! And then you can hear that like excitement, and she's lost it. Like you can hear in her voice, like you could turn off the screen and you're like, yeah, she's lost it. She's absolutely lost. You could just see her face in your vision. That's how incredible she is at this. There's a couple other characters, like they had Kaguya of Kaguya Summon Love is War. She was Kiwi, and she did a great job as well. But for the most part, it was very, very new cast of seiyus. But by far, Utena stood out as literally she carried the show. Like there was even times where like the budget just was. It dropped at some point, but I'm like, she's still carrying it. Like, she literally, her voice is carrying the show. Like, I don't care how bad it looks. She's just nailing that voice, and she's absolutely incredible. Whoever found her, give them a pay raise. Because that person, whatever agency she's with, yeah, like you said, I agree. She's literally kind of like our first kind of Clementine with Aoyuki. Like, that was that moment for Aoyuki for us.
Yeah.
And this feels like this moment for this Seiyu. Give her any role like this. Somebody that is shut in neat. She's not a shut in neat, but just somebody that is very socially awkward, is very like a very introvert that suddenly finds something very pleasing and goes crazy. But yeah, that gets into, I guess my intrigue about this show so much is that I came to the show because controversy. Like I was excited because the PVs made this show look like people are going to hate this And I love when Japan does that. I love when Japan says, we're doing this because we can, and it's funny. Sorry, people that don't like fun. We're going to do this, and we're going to enjoy it and have fun. And I was like, I like that. I'm going to check this out. Plus, it looked pretty darn crazy. Let's be honest. The idea of a BDS villain taking down the magical girls on a regular basis sounds pretty funny. The PVs looked great. The art style was what the hell is this? And then I go to actually watch it, and yes, Uchina carries it with her voice. Like, the Seiyu carries it. Like, holy crap, this girl is a dork, and I like her. And then the studio enhances it with the expressions. I loved getting Uchina faces videos, putting on my Twitter feed every single week, because just these goofy faces that Uchina would have every time something happens. Suddenly, yeah, she's forced to transform, and the magical girls spot her, and she's like, I knew it. She's got that face on her that's like, I hate my life right now. But then suddenly it shifts to, I really like this. And then she's got that look of like absolute thirst on her face that is absolutely dorky. Her expressions that they were doing with the character designing and everything was just absolutely fantastic. It was fun. It was goofy. It was over the top. It was just outrageous that it exists. And then at some point, yes, I'll admit, like the last quarter of the series, it felt like the budget was having troubles, or maybe their scheduling started having problems, because I felt less expressiveness to it. I mean, except for like some pinnacle points, like Uchina going absolutely ape crap. Those still hit. But late that third quarter, it started, that last quarter, it started kind of losing a lot of the quality, which was kind of a bummer. But very early on, being carried by the expressiveness and the Seiyu and how over the top it was, what started intriguing me was, wait, there's actually something cool in here. Like, it's not just, you know, what we are all coming here for, ecchi, over the top, zaniness and comedy. There's something else in here, and that was, for me personally, was, oh crap, I kind of like this concept of essentially the birth of a villain. It is seeing Uchina going from being an introvert. A lot of people joked, and I kind of agree. She's like Bocchi the Rock, like Bocchi. She acts kind of like Bocchi. She's this introvert character that is slowly kind of going, I kind of like this. And then it goes into like an obsession where she basically becomes a porn addict, basically. Like, she's literally not studying. She's failing her classes because she's too busy opening her drawer to bring out this BDSM comic that hint, hint, Venna, dropped off at the shrine that she keeps looking at. And it's getting her into this idea of, oh, I want to do this with the magical girls next. And then over time, it kind of goes into her, again, overtaking all the other villains, and then growing into, I just want to see these faces on the magical girls. I don't want to harm them. I don't want them to stop doing what they're doing. Even has moments where she's like, you better not stop what you're doing. You better keep being a magical girl. Having these moments where she's literally just wants to mess with them for a little bit and then leave. And like, the magical girls are literally going, what's the deal with her? She shows up, she's literally got us beat, and then she leaves. Like, it doesn't make any sense to them. Like, nobody can make sense of it. Like, she becomes her own villain that literally breaks all logics, and I loved it for that. I thought it was a really fascinating idea. And then slowly they started sprinkling in the concepts of power, and yes, technically Venna and Vots, which are basically the magical girls mascot and Inomorta's mascot. And then at the same time, I was reading the manga alongside of it. I was trying to find out where they were moving stuff around, because they literally kind of pulled some way later chapters forward in order to kind of fill it in to where it has a really good stopping point. And I'm going, I want a second season so bad, because where it goes from here looks super cool. Which sadly we don't have the season announced for it. Bummer. But yeah, I just got hooked. I like the characters. I love the chemistry. The comedy's fantastic. It's super offensive. It's super, super inappropriate. Do not watch the show unless you don't mind that, because it gets super... It's basically like borderline, if not over that line, going into the H category. They have like thrustings and stuff that happens, even though they don't actually show what's actually happening all the time. It was super, super over the top with its etchiness, and I loved every minute of it. Besides, again, the quality kind of dipping towards later part. And I want more. I really badly want more. I thoroughly enjoy this show every single week, and it was just a fantastic ride. My only frustration, and I kind of am happy they didn't announce another season, is I almost don't want them to, at least this studio, do the next season. I mean, if they get a good enough budget, they can do it, I guess, or planning. What I kept telling people is that as I was trying to figure out like where they're at in the manga as the show was going on, because I was reading the manga along with it to see if anything changes. Which, by the way, the studio made a lot of these scenes way more risky. So the studio was not holding back. They were actually pushing it. They were pushing it a lot, adding additional scenes. But the thing that I kept telling people is that what I'm really excited about is that it felt like just beyond where the anime adapts to, suddenly the mangaka turns into like a crazy epic shonen writer with amazing art. Like I'm not saying like Berserk or anything like that, but like, or Vagabond, where was that crazy amazing manga? It's like just out of nowhere, the art just gets super aggressive looking, and it looks edgy as all get, and it's so freaking incredible. Like the later Uchina in this particular season is barely scratching the surface of how edgy this writer gets with the characters going forward. And like I said, I wanted to see it adapted, but it's like I kind of understand that was probably something they wanted to avoid. That's probably why they brought forward, I want to say, like 5 chapters from the later parts just to make this end where it ends. Because I think if they went any further than this, they have crazy stuff to get into. Which, by the way, they did adapt like 27 chapters. It was literally 2 chapters per episode, so it'd be 26 chapters. So 26 chapters, and I think they have like 57 out right now. So unless it's just not a good stopping point for another season, they could technically do another season. So I'm hoping we get another one. I know a lot of people are saying, holy crap. Yes, streaming services, when I did my your favorite anime is not popular in Japan video that I do every single season, the rankings in Japan for streaming services for Gushing Over Magical Girls was really good. It did very good on rankings in Japan for streaming services. The Blu-rays did sell well. I think like 6,000. That's good. It's not great. But like I told most people, unless it sells like 90,000 Blu-rays, nobody cares. Let's be clear. Blu-rays, DVDs, like the AGA always kind of reports, is barely a percentage of the entire anime industry. You could sell 90,000 copies and nobody cares. What's making them money is overseas licensing, it's distributions on streaming services, TV broadcasts. That's what makes them money. So I'm hoping that it being very successful on Japanese streaming sites, that yes, that means we can get another season. But don't take the Blu-ray sales as being something that's going to make any kind of improvement or any kind of a bump in the needle. Again, unless it's like 20s of thousands. Like Mappa, the Mappa CEO guy that was talking about with Chainsaw Man. It's got to sell like Jujutsu Kaisen numbers. Nobody's selling Jujutsu Kaisen numbers. Or was it? Yeah, it was Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I love it. It's great. I want more. And Uchina's Seiyu is absolutely incredible, and I want to see her more stuff, so... Yeah. Anything else?
It's an amazing show. Go watch it.
There you go. Unless you don't like pasties. Mm-hmm. Or lots of punch shots. And stars. Stars are bad. And yes, High Dive has the uncensored version. It's the most uncensored version. There's a Blu-ray version also, but they had the most uncensored version. Metallic Rouge. Metallic Rouge. I should have talked first. So you gotta warn me. I gotta do like the review first if I'm gonna do the next one alone. I'm not gonna talk about this one much. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with this one. Again, Metallic Rouge, it was on Crunchyroll, done by Studio Bones, an original series, sci-fi mecha action series. Essentially follows Rouge, who works alongside Naomi. Rouge is a what would they call them? The Nins. Rouge is a Neen, which a Neen is basically an android. Like, it's a created being, and mankind kind of rules over the Neens. The Neens have the usual codes, like you can't harm other people, or you can't harm humans. But then there's like this group of Neens that have been harming humans. So Rouge is being sent to take out this group of Neens that is harming humans. Asimov code. That's the code to not hurt humans. So yeah, they're going around. They're taking out all these baddies. And then at some point, they run into a group that's trying to help the cause of the Neens so that they can have their own rights and freedoms, break out of the code. That all leads into the deeper story about Rouge's origins, where she came from, her parents, and the origins of the other Neens that are doing the rule breaking, and then deeper plot lines about Mercury and aliens and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I wanted so badly like the show because I think visuals, presentation, directing, it's great. Like, the show looks great. I think the character designs are fantastic. Visually, it looks great. The action scenes are fantastic. The music, especially during the combat sequences, is fantastic. They actually utilize vocals, which I think is fine. Is just, I couldn't ask for more. I keep saying, add vocals to action scenes, it makes it 1,000 times better. This is a case in point right here. This just makes it so much better. But I felt very early on that this show was going to get stuck in sort of a monster of the week kind of thing, where it presents the character that she's supposed to take down next. They try to make me like the character, or at least explains the character's motivations before Rouge has to defeat them. It didn't do that because, like I said, very quickly they went straight into the Neens trying to break and independence themselves and break from the code, yada yada. And then straight right into like this whole carnival group, which that gets into like the later plot lines, and then into the history of Rouge. So it didn't do what I originally thought it was going to be, which was going to be like basically going full on Super Sentai type of style and have it very episodic, which not to say all Super Sentais do that, but it's kind of a trope within it. Instead, it did get focused into the characters, but I think what really, honestly, in the end, shut me down from the show overall is that very quickly I found myself not that I don't like Rouge, but I don't like her character writing. They were so kind of stuck between this idea of trying to humanize the Neens, but at the same time not humanizing the Neens. I don't know. This is probably going to sound crazy to anybody that actually really liked the show, because I'm probably going to talk gibberish here, because I'm a fully honest that most of this show I started to check out. So if it sounds interesting to you, don't take my words as like concrete right here. If it sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. I'm probably going to be the worst person to ask because it just didn't work for me. I couldn't find myself really understanding Rouge as a character. They were trying to humanize her, but at the same time, they didn't want to humanize her. They wanted to keep her as a Neen, which again, the Neens aren't supposed to be human. And I got a little bit frustrated with how they were trying to make her emotional when, for a majority of the show, she was very lacking in empathy or anything. So they spent like several episodes making her very devoid of empathy. Like, even with the very first story, she literally plays off of this Viola's desire to help her out, and then she immediately turns and takes her down. And it kind of plays it out like she betrayed somebody that literally reached out their hand to help her because they thought that she was homeless. But then she like so cold-bloodedly takes her down that I'm like, okay, so Rouge is literally a robot. She has no emotion. But then later on, suddenly out of nowhere, when everybody's trying to get her to become like this beacon for their uprising, suddenly she's getting emotional. And I'm like, I don't understand. Did I miss like a virus getting in her and there's something messing with her mind or something like that? So that was kind of the point which I started to sort of check out. I was paying attention, but I was sort of checking out quite a bit with the show. It was still a good story. Like, it was still enough for me to watch the rest of the show, and I understood sort of the direction that they were taking the whole plot lines, and it feels well thought out. But the problem was that I at some point disconnected my desire to care. And if you can understand the plot lines and you can understand where the story's going for, but if you don't have the care, what investment do you really have, I guess, in the end? It's got some good twists and turns, and it's got some good developments in the story, in the grand scheme of the story, but I didn't care about the characters, so it's kind of like similar to what we were talking about earlier. Any of these characters could die, and I don't really care. And they're like killing characters off left and right, and then they're unkilling characters left and right, and then at some point I'm just like, I just really don't care who wins in the end. Just make a black hole. I don't know. Just boop, just take them all out. The end. Crazy ending, right? So yeah, at some point I sort of emotionally, I guess the best way to put it, emotionally I checked out, and that's because it didn't feel consistent enough. And in the end, I just didn't really care for it. I think it's got great style. It's got great world building. It's got great elements of the character and the designs and the aesthetic. Like, it's nailing this kind of very, I don't want to say cyberpunk, but it is very so much futuristic. It's got like I guess a nighttime futuristic style to it that I really like. I guess is the best way to put it. So that's Metallic Rouge. Don't listen to a single. Don't even listen to a single thing I just said. Just ignore it all. Go look for a Mal review. Go look for a Mal review of it. You could trust them more than me. Do I not have Unluck in this? Yes, I do. All right, there it is, right there. Undead Unluck, Chris. Undead Unluck. It's our next one. Are you ready to talk about Undead Unluck?
I don't know.
You don't know? Did you finish it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the key thing there. If you didn't finish it, then we ain't talking about it. But yes, Undead Unluck, the Japanese title being Undead Unluck, was on Hulu. David Productions worked on it, based on a manga, action, comedy, sci-fi, supernatural. This one is directed by Yuki Yase, who did Fire Force. But yeah, this one opens up with Fuko. And she is pretty much just finished her favorite manga. She made a dedication to herself that she was going to read this manga, and when they finally released the last volume and she got to see the ending of it, she was going to end her life. And that's because she has this trauma from her childhood where she blames herself for the death of her family because she has this ability which is known as unluck. Anybody that she touches, bad luck hits them, like super bad luck. And so she believes that her parents dying in a explosion in a plane was due to her like embracing them and kissing them goodbye or whatever. So yeah, she hates the fact that she's so isolated and that she doesn't want to live on anymore. So she's going to go jump off the bridge. And then suddenly Andy shows up, and Andy has an ability called Undead. So he can't die, and he's kind of looking for a way to die. So he's like, I'm hoping that you'll give me enough bad luck that I can finally die. So he's like grabbing onto her and does not want to let her go. She's hoping that she'll unlock some crazy amount of unluck to him and he can finally pass on. And so she kind of makes up some joke really quickly that, yeah, she says that the power of the unluck is based on like how much she cares for them. So if you keep grabbing her, she's not going to like him. Thus the unluck's going to be worse. So they kind of work together for a while. Eventually they get kind of tied into the Union comes to take them out. What the Union is this group of organization that they get these quests from this book, this artifact called the Apocalypse, that these quests they have to complete. And if they can complete the tasks or the quests themselves, they can avoid getting penalties. They can avoid penalties. And the penalties themselves are like different things that affect the world itself. And if they get too many of the penalties, the apocalypse comes, like the end of the world, Ragnarok comes. But yeah, eventually Fuko and Andy end up joining the Union, and they work to take out the quests, and yeah. Review. What'd you think of Undead Unluck? Oh, yeah, Andy's got like a split personality. He has this thing in his head that if he pulls out, he gets his like thousands of years of memories.
Turns into the other Andy. It's kind of sad looking at the character list and seeing Unchange in the list, and it's like, oh, I miss Unchange, and then I realize man, that was like episode like 4 or 5 of this show. How far has it gone since then? I really like this show. It starts out, because I didn't watch the first few episodes until I had came over and poked in and watched, like, I don't know, episode 2 or 3 when Andrew was watching it. And I just found Andy and Fuko to just be absolutely inviting characters. Their chemistry together works really well.
I'm glad you like me.
Yeah, I know. Andy, it's
Just
important.
don't start saying that Andy's got a great 6-pack. Then I can't follow you on that one. Andy does have a good 6-pack though.
But I did find the show to be very inviting. It's just a goofy action romp all the way through, and the kind of mechanics to the world is actually quite fascinating. I do find myself really being intrigued by the idea of the Apocalypse book and how the penalties are actually things that are affecting the world, the Yumas, and how they affect the world, and all these different things. And it's a really fascinating thing that they're building here. Getting into the compulsory abilities and the and what different types, the ones that are projecting and the ones that are shooting themselves and all that stuff. It's just a fascinating batch of rules. So yeah, I'm absolutely enjoying it. Love the characters, love the world. It's a big old mixed bag of everything that you could ever absolutely want in a show. It's all here.
Definitely one that needed another announcement quick.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be an event coming in like August. Hopefully that's when they announce another season. I would assume they're going to keep going because it's a big shonen. We're getting signs of those. Do you like those like 5-minute recaps?
Mm-hmm.
That let me get that out of the way. Yeah, one of my biggest frustrations that I had with this series, biggest negative for sure, is it feels not just the fact that yes, some episodes had literally like 5 minutes of recap. Like
I tended to skip it, so I never really thought about it.
You don't need to tell me everything that happened literally the previous episode that happened not even a week ago. I don't need to know what happened. I don't need to know what half of what last episode had in it. I can watch that again if I need to. If I'm forgetting it that quickly, I'll go watch the episode, put new content in the new episode. So yeah, the recaps were nasty. But additionally, not just the recaps, but how much time it was spending just showing like flashbacks. Like characters just constantly having flashbacks of scenes from the previous episodes. And it's like, it almost felt like they were purposely trying to pad in the episodes just to get it to reach a 2 core. Like, it didn't feel, I don't think it was really present in the first core. It was just really the second core. It almost felt like at some point they said, hey guys, we're going to be an episode short and we got a time slot to fill. So let's just kind of pad this out so it can reach, was it 24 episode or whatever? So it almost felt like the second core, they were really trying to stretch it. Now, I do feel like a lot of the episodes felt like they were well encompassed. Like we had like a beginning that went to an end, and I was not upset about where it was ending the episode. And that maybe that's a tribute to them padding it with so much recapping. But I would rather them. This is one of those like moments where I'm like, this is one of those moments where I really wish that the studios would just kind of focus on how much time do we need to tell the story. That's how long the episode is going to be. I kind of wish they would start doing that, but they don't, unfortunately. Anyways, that aside, I really like this show, and I really want more. I think this is probably one of the most refreshing, yes, Shonen Jump titles to come out in a long time. I heard from a lot of people that this was like something that was hitting Shonen Jump that was really refreshing, that a lot of people are excited for. I was told that it takes a while to pick up, and once it picks up, it takes off. For me, from the get-go, I loved it. So it was one of those things where like I started this shit because I heard people saying it takes off at some point. And I'm like, but I'm really liking it right now. So is it going to get bad? And I'm kind of wondering if that's the case, that it's going to it gets great for other people, but it gets bad for me. That's my fear that I have whenever I'm liking it from the beginning. Because I liked it from the beginning because I loved Fuko and Andy. It was just so funny. The two of them together was just so much fun. It was literally the girl that was trying to give up on life, this guy that was full of life but wanted to get rid of his life as well, but he can't let her go until she helps him in his. And so you got like this really goofy chemistry between the two of them that are just trying to find an in, but then you're realizing very quickly, I'm like, it kind of feels like they like being with each other. Like very quickly, Fuko just kind of gives up on ending her own because she kind of likes being with Andy. So it's like almost like she's getting purpose. She's finally able to be next to somebody that doesn't die, really is what it is. And she appreciates that. I like very early on, they expressed this in the idea that her hair was extremely long, which was really cool. I was extremely beautiful and they had to cut it, obviously. I love really long hair and then they have to cut it, which is why I like Tatiana so much. I love the massive amount of hair because there was a story idea behind it. If she couldn't have anybody cut her hair, because if somebody touched her hair, they would get bad luck. Like, it was a good chance that if somebody went there to grab her hair and went to go snip it, they would, like, go, oops, and then, like, cut their artery or something like that and die. She was afraid of anybody touching her. So he cuts it for her. And again, it's one of those moments where finally somebody can touch me, and they cut this hair that I've never been able to get cut. It's like there's so much meaning in it, despite the fact it's just being a simple haircut. Like, all you did is cut her hair. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal to her because she's never been touched for so long. It's got that kind of concept that finally she's able to be with somebody, and their chemistry was just so much fun. He had so much energy. She's just screaming and just like, what the hell's going on around me? She's very much so acting as like the straight man, pointing out the absurdity to the situation itself. They're hugging each other so that they drop this massive like meteorite on the top of this building in order to take out this guy. It's nuts. And I loved it. And yes, technically Andy's power is crazy as well. Like, he gets around by cutting his legs off so that he can shoot blood out his legs because he regenerates so fast he doesn't die. And so we're literally jettisoning around the city by just spraying blood out. He shoots people by cutting his finger and shooting the tip of his finger at people. It's nuts. And I love that. And that's what kind of carried it. Then very quick, what I like, and this is something that I think may be like attributed to the writing of this series, is they don't stop there. The writer's really good at constantly pivoting to keep it fresh. So it starts out with the Andy Fuko chemistry. Then out of nowhere, Union shows up. Suddenly, the Union's trying to kill them. Then boom, we're trying to join the Union. Because the best way to avoid the Union is to join the Union. So now we're going to the Union. We join the Union. Now we're finding out how the world ticks. What is this round table? Suddenly we're talking about the apocalypse and we're talking about the penalties and what that affects the world itself. Oh yeah, by the way, stars. All these crazy things are happening and it's pivoting. Now we're going to do these quests. Now we're going to have this other group show up.
Yeah, there's
now they have their
yeah.
drawing. And now they're going to have this twist right here. Now we're going to get into the past. Now we're going to get into Andy. Again, the writer is good at one key thing. Pivot, keep it fresh, never get stuck in a cycle. The problem that creates is that when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work, and I'm just begging for the next pivot. I hated the betrayal. Ever since the betrayal, I wasn't enjoying the show. It got... I guess it lost its flavor. It lost the chemistry of Andy and Fuko. It lost the fun. Ever since the betrayal happened, I just wasn't enjoying it. I love the story behind a certain character in the last arc. I thought that was a really cool thing. But everything from that betrayal to the very end of this core, I just wasn't feeling it. And that's like I'm not going to say that's a fault of the show. Like I said before, I think that's what's great about the writer, is they're constantly pivoting it. But the problem is that the moment that it pivoted in that direction, I was like, this feels like, I think somebody pointed out Bleach. This feels like this type of a show. We're doing this thing where this impending doom is here, but we're down here and fighting, I guess. And it's like, this is so dumb. Like, just move on. I don't care. And what was worse is that's when the recap started happening. And so that was compounding on top of it, was suddenly now we're getting like 5-minute recaps on top of the fact that I don't care about the stupid betrayal. It just feels so stupid. Let's move on. But again, like I said, getting off into autumn, all that stuff was really cool. The autumn stuff it started kind of rough, but it ended really cool. I didn't care much so for the whole, like, the book thing was okay. It wasn't as impressive as I thought. They put way too much emphasis on the idea of going through this book, this really tall book, and in the end, it didn't feel satisfactory. Like, it was like, oh, finally, we've been hinting at this whole book for a long time now, and now we're finally going to have Fuko go into the book, and it was like a shrug, I guess. Like, okay, I get what they're saying, but it wasn't that interesting. It's kind of like Helk. Remember, Helk was like, okay, time for the backstory, and we're like, holy crap, we're gonna get into Helk's backstory, and it's like, oh, okay, we can finish the backstory now. I really don't care anymore. This is not that interesting. Please finish the backstory.
I think that the problem with the book was that they tried too hard to not reveal the book. That was
right. It's like we're trying to tell you what's happening in the past, but we're not going to tell you what happens in the past.
That's the way it looked to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
But
it's fine yourself.
I didn't care for the betrayal either. But that, to me, I mean, that was like 2 episodes. I thought that was really freaking annoying. If anything, we knocked it down, but it didn't knock down, and then it kept going back up. So it was like, okay, just go away from that thing.
Shove this big rod into it, but it didn't stop it. Okay, we're gonna take the table instead. Okay.
But then when they got out of that and they started doing the autumn stuff, I actually really liked the autumn stuff. I do agree the book thing was a little bit annoying. But that's why I said the way I said it was what my annoyance with that.
I liked the writer. I just didn't like much else around that. I did like what they did with Repair though. That was kind of cool. But yeah, they hinted at something really big with Repair that I'm hoping turns into something cool if we get into the season. Kind of looked she looked very familiar. Repair looked very, very familiar. But yeah, I think it's a very refreshing series. I think it spends too much time on backstories and flashbacks. If it could kind of focus a little more, I think it could be just absolutely a stellar epic series. And yeah, I hope it gets another season. I think all in all, I think David Productions did a really incredible job on it. There was some really fun animation points. Yes, there was a lot of kind of like, I don't know, it almost felt Shaftish. David Production does this too. It's not like it's a Shaft thing, but they do that kind of like, they're trying to hide they're not doing anything in a scene. Just very, very plain shots, but it kind of has a little bit of artistic value to it. But overall, I think it looked really good for the most part. So there's some cutting edges or cutting corners here and there, but overall, I think it looked really good. So, and I think they captured a very unique style to it. I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, looking forward to more. We'll see though. Undead Unluck, Witch and Zobisto. I'm gonna assume that was a no for Chris. Correct. I think you've established that already. I really, really liked Witch and the Beast. I'm just hoping I made an outline for. There it is. Scrolling. We're still scrolling. Did I make a video on this?
Don't think so.
God, I feel like I talked about this recently. Oh, I talked about it in my top 10 list. Oh, spoilers. I already spoiled it by saying that I really like the show. No, Witch of the Beast, Majo to Yaju. But no, I put it in my top 10 list, and it still had an episode left, because this is like the last show that ended for the season, feels like. Ran on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by Yokohama Animation Lab, based on a manga, action, adventure, drama, fantasy. And this one takes place in a world of witches. Well, magic and witches. Essentially, our main focus is Godot and Ashaf. Godot is somebody that has been cursed by a witch, and is desperately trying to find that witch so they can pulverize them. It seems like they're also trying to find a way to cure the curse, which there seems to be 3 different methods to cure the curse. The first method is that the witch that placed the curse has a change of heart. They basically decide, okay, I'll undo it. Not going to happen, probably. The second method is that they what was it? They fall in love or something like that. And then the third method is to kiss.
Get a kiss from someone you've fallen in love with.
Yeah, romance. They fall in love or something like that. The third one was just that simply, it was a combination of the two. Yeah, so it's the witch has a change of heart, true love kiss, and then the third one, which is the third one that nobody knows about, that Ashhoff is theorizing, which technically works out, is having them kiss a witch. Which, for Godot, works if they kiss a witch. It temporarily removes a curse. And the curse itself is forcing Godot to be in this body. Their actual real body they keep in this casket. So whenever Godot will kiss a witch, suddenly it's like their body just falls over, and then they go to their real body, which is in the casket, and it's this big hulking monster thing, which they never got into what the hell that thing is, but I really want to know what that is. But yeah, Ashhoff is pretty much is somebody that works for this organization, this order that essentially has different jobs to go around and solve mysteries around magic or crimes around magic, or yes, handle issues with witches, especially witches, because witches are extremely dangerous in the world. So yeah, Ashhoff is using Godot and kind of reeling in Godot because Ashhoff is helping Godot find this witch that cursed her by essentially doing these tasks. Because every now and then, the best way to kind of find witches is to work for this organization, because this organization will give you missions to go find witches. So yeah, they're just going around doing different tasks, handling different situations. There's concepts like artifacts in the world, which are like these items that can have magical powers in them. They'll get missions to take down witches. They'll get missions to handle like oddities about magic in a situation, so on and so forth. We do get some jumps to some other characters, mainly Fenora and Johan. And Fenora is a necromancer, or specializes in necromancy. So they get very heavily in her story regarding this issue with necromancy. Essentially, in this world, at least some cities, they allow the idea of necromancy, which is when your family or significant other dies, you can actually go into a contract where a necromancer can bring them back to life, and they have to do like maintenance on them on a regular basis, otherwise their body will decay. But essentially, if you lost your loved one, you can pay to have them brought back to life, and they can continue on. It gets really messed up in that regard, by the way. But yeah, eventually they run into this other very weak witch that has like this demon blade that is like the apocalypse and everything like that, and they get in the fight with these paladins that are like the people that they call for the last resort. Whenever there's a witch situation, they'll send paladins in, and paladins destroy everything, so on and so forth. Anyhow, my thoughts on Witch and the Beast. Like I mentioned earlier, I really, 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 really like the show. Coming into it, I wanted Witch Hunter Robin. I didn't get Witch Hunter Robin, but I think I got as close as we're probably ever going to get to Witch Hunter Robin. Like this is like very surface level aesthetic, and like the whole mystery. That was basically what Witch Hunter Robin was. It was going around and solving these cases and all that kind of stuff, hunting down witches. It's got like surface level, pretty much that, and it's got that kind of aesthetic to it that gets pretty close, but obviously animation wise and visual style, definitely not getting anywhere near there. There's some good shots in this series, but it's definitely not like a high budget series. They're not really getting anywhere near to the qualities of, was it the 90s Witch Hunter Robin? If not 2000 or something. I think it was 1990 something. I don't know. Anyways. But yeah, it's got the feel, I guess. It's got a very surface level feel and style of Witch Hunter Robin, enough that I'm like, okay, there might be something here. First episode, not great. It's an introduction. Here's Godot and Ashhoff. There's a witch. They fight. That's how Godot works. That's what Ashhoff does. Move on. Then following that, we kind of get like segments of like probably like 2 or 3 episodes for a story arc. Like the first one we have is, I think the first one they had was, it was the cop that they were trying to help out because there was like these deaths that were happening in the area. They think there's a witch in the area, whatever. So they're trying to figure that out. Second story arc is getting into Fenora and the necromancers. And the next story is getting into Helga and her being like this very weak witch that has this blade of apocalypse, getting into the paladins and the executioners. and then so on and so forth. The very last arc is basically getting into how Ashaf and Godot met. Which gets into I think the reason why this show works so well for me is I really like Godot and Ashaf's chemistry. Because again, Godot is the hothead. Just mad. I want to find a witch and kill it. Anytime somebody's, like, kids can be running her down the street and say, yeah, that old lady's definitely a witch. And he will literally stop the kids and say, where's that old lady? And like, we don't really know if it's a witch. We're just calling the old lady a witch. Like, that's bloodthirsty, massively bloodthirsty. Hot-headed, like, I'll get. Just rushing into combat. Ashaf, on the other hand, is the brains. Brains the bronze. He's the one that's basically has the leash on Godot and saying, if you want to find your witches, you're going to work for this organization. I'm going to show you how to find the witches. You just got to dial it in. He's keeping her in check all the time, while at the same time providing knowledge. He's where you're getting really into the magics and everything like that. It's the magic system they have is literally, yes, some witches can speak magic and invocations, but typically most people have to either pour mana into an inscription that will be the spell, or they have to write the inscription. So you'll see him, he'll literally like hold up his finger and you'll see the inscriptions coming, like trailing off of his finger, or he'll have it wrapping around his arms or something like that, almost like a tattoo. It's got a really cool little kind of magic system in the world itself, which does play into kind of the thing that I've been loving most about the show outside of Godot and Ashaf's kind of chemistry, is the mechanics of the world. I think it's got a cool world building system for the witches, how they work, the curse systems, the magic systems, again, the artifacts, the necromancers. Like, I'm kind of bugged that we only got literally, I think, like 2 or 3 episodes of Fenora and Johan, because one, Fenora's Seiyu is incredible, and she was just a really cool character. But, like, there was so much thought put into just how necromancers work. Like, there's a whole... Like, there's the public side of it, which is, hey, you lose a loved one? Sign a contract, and they'll bring them back to life, and they can return back to life. You just got to make sure they get maintenance. There's, like, these necromancers that literally... That's their job. Billy comes back in for the day. Hey, got to have our maintenance. Maintenance on Billy. Make sure that everything's working well. They have, like... They have, like, I think, like, 3 settings to them. Like, you can choose to have them be like semi-automatic, fully automatic. Like, how their brain works is that sometimes you have to have it like partially controlled and kind of kept in check, or you can have them full auto where it just kind of goes with whatever's in there, but it's kind of could be semi-rotten so that it could go crazy. It's like, how much thought is put into these systems? It's crazy. It makes me really badly want to read the manga and see if there's like maybe even more in there, because how much thought they put into a lot of these magics and the systems in this world literally carries it for me. Like, that was the stuff that I was just eating up. And like I said, I was like super bummed that we didn't get more of Fenora after that, but it was fine because we went immediately into Helga, which again gets into a witch of like the original bloodline that is super weak, but then getting into like the Blade of Apocalypse and all that kind of crap, and the paladins and the executioners. The paladins basically being, again, like the government sends them to take care of the witches, but then on top of that they have the executioners, which are like, they're always working in pairs, and they're the people that get sent in to do the dirty work. All that stuff is cool. So anyways, that's all for me to say. It's not the greatest looking show in the world. I wish it looked better, but it's got a style to it. It's got a theme and a style to it that carries it. It's not like crazy good animation, but at least it has styling, directing. It's got great characters. It's got fantastic world building. I love the witches and the mechanics of the world itself, and I so badly want more. It's easily probably one of those gems of the season for me, for sure. I really enjoyed it, so I hope we get another season, but I don't think we will. I think the mangaka is on hiatus, ? Or maybe the manga's been on hiatus for a while or something like that. But yeah, I hope that eventually they can get enough for another season. I would definitely welcome it gladly. All right, Chris, it's time. Frieren. Are you ready for Frieren?
I suppose.
let's get it done. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. It's finally time to talk about Frieren. What everybody's going to skip forward to for this video is Frieren. 28 episodes. I forgot. 28 episode series. We're finally done with that one. But I guess it makes sense because we had a starting out of like, what, 4 episodes that it start out with? I had a 2-hour premiere, and then we went straight into the full broadcast. Good for you over there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm getting good at this. Frieren Beyond Journey's End, or Soso no Frieren. This one streamed on Crunchyroll, ran for 28 episodes. I had a 2-hour premiere for it. Being done by Studio Madhouse. Sources of manga. Genres adventure, fantasy, and drama. Music by Evan Call, who did Violet Evergarden, Mob Love. We had Keiichiro Sato, who did Bocchi the Rock, and Aka 13. Series composition by One Punch Man and Aka 13. Series composition writer Tomohiro Suzuki. Great team behind this. But yeah, this one opens up with the hero, Himmel, and his party of heroes. They defeated the Demon Lord. They've finished their 10-year journey. They're returning back to home, where they're welcomed as heroes and celebrating the defeat of the Demon Lord. And they have this big party. And actually, at first, they got in trouble for the king. But then they have a party. And then, they're pretty much separating. Everybody's talking about what they're going to do in the future. The healer going on his own separate way. Himmel staying there. Aizen going back to his home. And Frieren herself, which is an elf, the mage of the party, she's just like, I'm going to go back to doing what I did before. I'm going to go find grimoires and travel around. Later, I'll see you guys later. They actually promised to meet again for this
30 years.
Yeah, these meteor showers. They only happen after so long, so they're going to meet up again for it again. Frieren even said, I have this great spot where we can view it next time. So yeah, she shows back up later on after a brief kind of running around doing her own thing. And yeah, Himmel's like this. Gravity took over the poor guy. He's like this little gremlin old man. And they all go together out into this field and they watch the meteor shower again and cut forward, and Himmel, the hero party that took down the Demon Lord, has finally passed away. Frieren joins everybody else, goes to the funeral. People are talking about how she's not crying, even though she was his comrade for so long. This elf that has no emotions, probably. And then right as they're burying Himmel, finally she realizes her biggest mistake. It was hinting it all the way up to this point, but there is a problem with Frieren and the idea that this whole journey with the hero and the hero party was a mere 10 years for an elf. She lives for thousands of years. What is 10 years? It's a mere 10 years. So she never really paid much attention to Himmel, their experiences together. She never appreciated any moment that she had with her party. But now suddenly she's going, I never tried to get to know him. I wish I got to know him. I wish I could have paid it more attention, basically. So this becomes her massive regret. Cut forward, she ends up getting kind of tricked into sort of taking on a new apprentice, which is Fern from Heiter. She also ends up getting a quest from Aizen, the dwarf warrior of the party. He pretty much gives Frieren a quest to go to the far north, where there is sort of this promised land area where it is said that you can meet the spirits of your friends and past comrades. So he basically says, I'm going to give you a mission, go there and see if you can find Himmel. And so she travels with Fern up north, essentially taking the same path the heroes once did. She's going up north, but she's taking the path that she did with Himmel before, all the while kind of recalling all the memories and the experiences that she had along the journey. So she'll go over to this place, then suddenly go, oh yeah, this is where Himmel did this. And she'll remember those memories and then recall them and get a little story out of them before moving on to the next one. Eventually they run into Stark, which Stark is actually somebody that Aizen sent her to go see as well, which is his apprentice. And Stark is a up-and-coming warrior, so he joins the party too. And lots of Fern faces. Fern pout faces. Mm-hmm. Review, Chris. What did you think of 26 episodes of insaneness? It could be badness. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to assume.
Okay. Episode 1 was good. Episode 2 was good. Episode 3 was good. Episode 4 was good. Episode 5 was good.
No, wait, are we talking about the episode 1 and 2 of the Japanese release or the Crunchyroll release, global release?
I want the...
No, because Japan, it was the first 2 hours was 1 episode.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
Crunchyroll was 4 episodes.
I just watched the Crunchyroll ones.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay, so
Because some people didn't like that first episode, the Japanese one, but they liked the third episode of the Crunchyroll one.
okay, so
Anyways,
episode
thoughts.
6.
What's your
was
review?
No, it's a fantastic show. I
almost
really,
thought you were going to say it was all right. So I heard.
I all the way through this show, I had a fantastic time. It's every character seems really well paced to just revealing their story. I can't wait. Did we get a confirmation on continuation?
Mm-mm.
Dang it. There needs more.
There's an event at the end of this month that hopefully.
Yeah, we definitely need more of this show. Yeah, I absolutely loved it all the way through. Probably, it is definitely on my top of all time. I really had a fantastic. This was a great journey. I was constantly engaged in everything that was going on. The show looked fantastic. I can't think of maybe 1 or 2 times where I was like, but at best it was barely there. Not something worth worrying too much about. But yeah, overall, loved it.
Yeah. I've talked about this too much. I'm not going to talk about it again. I've made a top 10 list that it has on there. I've been doing weekly impressions videos on it. I did a full review video on it. I am tired of talking about it. No. It's incredible. For all the podcast listeners, I got to talk about it. It was incredible. Like this is literally a perfect show. Like this is, if somebody wants to ask me, hey, what's a perfect show? This is one of them. I'm going to say Frieren. Mainly because visually, let's start off visually. Obviously, it's done by Madhouse, and it has what seems like a lot of budget and a lot of planning and a lot of time given to this. This aired on Madhouse's parent company. They made a block in their feature film block that normally has just Japanese live action films, feature films. They put an animated film series rather in that block. That's how much budget they were bumping into this thing. They wanted this to look gorgeous, and it shows. They got an incredible director, which is Keiichiro Sato. Why I mention Keiichiro Sato is because he did Bocchi the Rock. And as anybody would know, if you watch Bocchi the Rock, he went above and beyond for that show. He was doing so many creative things to enhance the anime. And that's what I really feel with this. It's not as if he did some crazy stuff but Bocchi the Rock, he was making like weird, goofy diatribes and physically making things that throw into the scene to make it weird and add something to it. He was being creative physically with like props and stuff along with the animation and style. And why I say that is because he took that and he took it to another level. With Frieren, he's taking it and making an anime. He's not making a manga adaptation. This isn't an anime. It's anime first and foremost. It has pacing, visual style, music, everything kind of flowing together so perfectly. I'm this similar to Gushing Over Magical. I read the manga along with the series as I was watching it. I'm like, how did you take this panel and turn it into that gorgeous set piece? Like, what did you how? This is a sign of a good adaptation is when you literally see a single panel that is this small thing that maybe takes up maybe a fifth of the entire page of the manga, and you turn it into an epic set piece visually with music and emotional and everything going on at the same time. That's the sign of like the absolute tender, loving care these people put into it. The animators, the series composition writer, the animation directors, the director, everybody. They were on full cylinders for this show. It's absolutely incredible what they did with this adaptation. That aside, what makes the show special story-wise? Let's put aside visuals, because yes, some people will say that it's carried by visuals. Its visuals are great. What I'm going to say. Music, amazing. Evan Call is the same with Violet Evergarden. Dude makes me cry. Made me cry here. Evan Call's great. Moving on to the story. What makes Frieren, the story, special? I think, let's focus on Frieren first. What makes Frieren, the character, so special is that, yes, it opens up with what I thought was going to be emotionless elf learns to cry. It's so much more than that, because what I love is that this writer is so good at breadcrumbing the story. Whereas you at first have this idea of an emotionless doll that learns to emotion, it turns into later on, oh, there's a reason why she was that way. Yes, there's the obvious answer is that she's an elf, and elves just view time different than everybody else. That was my assumption early on, which is, I think, for the most part, the idea there. She doesn't get this blip in her life is actually more special than she thought it was. But it's her reliving what she overlooked. She witnessed it. She didn't understand the importance of it. And we get to, alongside her, re-experience those. So it's kind of that nicety that we don't know what she went through, but we're experiencing it for the first time like she is, because she's only now trying to experience it. So it's got that kind of almost like retrospective look through her life that's not a flashback, but it's technically a flashback, but we're getting the same emotion she is because we're seeing it for the first time like she is technically.
In a way,
I like that play out her story. But like I said, what's cool is later on you find out that there was a reason, there's another reason why she was so disconnected, and it suddenly all loops in on itself. So there's actually a grander story, and you see that what I loved about this, and I realized at some point, Frieren of episode 1 is not the Frieren of episode 28. They're so different. But it's not like insane difference here. We're not talking about suddenly she's jumping around and acting like a Looney Tunes character from being an emotionless doll. But you can see, like, she's smiling more. Did she just smile? Like, you're seeing that her character's so changing, and what she's now realizing is reflecting on how she interacts with other people. She acts so different. And even the episode 8, Frieren, is so different than episode 18, Frieren, and how she responds to Fern pouting about Stark or something like that. I love that aspect of her.
It's hard to express. I mean, just playing off of what Andrew's talking about, I absolutely agree. There's something that is kind of key to the idea of, in a way, yes, you're getting the breadcrumbs of Frieren as she's almost effectively experiencing the story, telling you the story, and at the same time she's learning more about, she's not making the same mistake twice while she's living this new journey with Stark and Fern. It's kind of there's almost like 4 levels to this entire story all at the same time.
I think early on she's making the same mistakes, but yeah, as she's learning from those experiences, I think she is definitely changing how she responds to them. Yeah,
and that's one of the things that I think is absolutely, she like Andrew was saying, the Frieren towards the end is very much more invested in Fern and Stark than she was at the very beginning when she first met Fern, because she was constantly complaining to Hyther, I don't want a student. So yeah.
Could you imagine if a certain somebody at the very beginning said, I think I can kill Frieren? How differently she would respond at the beginning of the story versus later on when she gets that response. Oh. Back then it'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever, bye. Like, she would not care. She would not care. But it has so much meaning now. It's good stuff. That is such good stuff. But yeah, now, everybody else, let's move on. Let's move on. It's Fern. I love her to death. This is a really good example of, while you don't get her entire life, we are technically seeing her from when she was a child all the way until she grows up and she gets to be a teenager. She's an apprentice of Frieren. She's growing. She still technically has a lot of immaturity about her. She's learning how to grow up. She's learning how to mature. We're literally seeing the birth of an adult. She's like literally becoming an adult. We're seeing her kind of growing, but at the same time kind of being trapped in maturity, and that's a lot to do with the fact that she's spent most of her life, let's be honest, raising and taking care of Frieren. She's like literally she's a baby mama. She has to take care of Frieren all the time, drag her out of the bed and everything. Frieren and Frieren's relationship is just so fantastic. They're just, the chemistry between the two of them is so super cute. I love it. Stark, I feel bad for the guy. Stark doesn't deserve anything.
Poor Stark.
That guy, I feel, Stark is literally, I feel bad for this guy character. Like, it's literally every 2 seconds he didn't deserve that. Like, he's a good boy. Stark's a good boy. But no, Stark, technically, his concept there is, it goes in line with his master, is the idea of somebody that had, in his childhood, no hopes for his own future, but he kept trying and pushing. He was a failure, but now he's kind of learning to sort of face his own skeletons, face his own fears, stand up for himself, and grow into being a great warrior, which he is technically a very great warrior. It kind of sucks that, like, the whole, like, last arc, he's, like, barely there. Sucks. So hopefully we get more of him. But yeah, just getting into the past heroes. I loved Heiter, the corrupt priest, Eisen, the gruffy little midget. Even though I hate his design, I still don't like his design. It kind of grew on me, but I didn't like Eisen's design. Himmel is just he's a charming dork, and I hate that I love him just as much as I think that he's portrayed in Frieren's stories. He's literally the guy that just tried so hard to get her attention and do everything for her, and she didn't notice it, and it kind of is super heartbreaking. That goodbyes at the very end, I was like, ugh, I don't want to say goodbye because it'll look awkward when we meet each other again. Ugh, stop. That continues on with all the other characters, like even like all the exam characters. Each one of them has like we get a little bit of a taste of their story, and Denkin, with his whole life as being like the leadership of this like hierarchy of the kingdom itself, is like this top class mage. Getting the Lawfin, who's kind of following him around. No, we didn't really get much of Lawfin. I'm sorry there. Kane and Luane, those two girls need to get a room. Ubel, this random chick that just has is absolute,
she's so bad. I love her.
Ubel is like the concept of absolute disconnection from the concepts of common sense and magic, which I think is absolutely terrifying, and I love how they portrayed her character. Werbel, and the fact that he was part of the military and a mage and trying to save his land. All the proctors, I've totally forgot about him. What was that other guy? Sign, yeah, that dude was in the show at some point. Sign, his character. Flammel, the legendary mage, was an incredible story, and her history with Frieren was fantastic. The idea of becoming essentially taboo in learning magic, and how magic concepts were brought to the world itself. And probably the most interesting character of the entire series that I absolutely loved getting into at the time, the demons. I think the demons are the most fascinating concept about the story, and I just absolutely ate up the moments that we had getting into them. We've kind of took a sidetrack from them, but we keep technically bringing them up because the demons seem to be very integral to the concepts of magic itself, which is very much so a focal point of the story. Magic, for the most part, magic is creations by demons who live for a long time. They all focus on one magic. They're very prideful about their one magic, and mankind has sort of been trying to mimic those magics. But the more interesting thing about the demons is when we finally get into them, they're very quickly described as monsters. They're just monsters. Monsters that mimic language to trick humans. They understand no concept of what they talk about, but they mimic human speech in order to trick them. So the example they give is that this village is trying to take down this demon that killed one of their own. They're hunting them down, and then suddenly the demon turns and yells, "Mama." And then suddenly nobody can kill them because they're crying out for their mother. Cut forward, you realize very quickly, it had no clue what a mother was. Even at the point where they're going to take it down, it literally starts yelling out "Mom" again. And it says, "Why are you yelling mother? Do you know what a mother is?" They have no clue what a mother is. It's just when you say it, it makes people stop. So that's why they say it. And it was so twisted. And I'm like, like, what are they doing with this? It's like, it was so fascinating how it was literally playing into my own mindset of like, are they trying to get in the idea of that being how it actually is, or is it a misdirection and these have some sort of sentience and will of their own? And it's so funny how it's very clear about it, but it's still kind of haunting at the same time. But yeah, them and the magic and all that kind of stuff, the fights, the animation, the fight scenes are incredible. They're more than just kind of pew-pews and dashes and stuff like that. There's choreography to them. Every time I think about it, I always think about the scene with Fern walking down the castle's walkway, the castle wall walkway, and then you have like these bolts are coming down towards her, and she's like so casually like walking and turning her staff and just deflecting things. And then you have the fight with Stark and the demon, where it's just these crazy swings and dashing at each other. It's just, it was so epic. Like every action scene was just absolutely incredible, and the music going in with it, going absolute ham. 10 out of 10 show, perfect.
Yeah, pretty much every battle scene was absolutely brilliant, and it's just production values. I mean, you could take any of them and put them against some of the top tier sakugas. They just look freaking amazing.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I think the thing that makes me love the action in this show more than a lot of other animated action shows is that when it gets really chaotic, like things are just, there's nukes and stuff going on, I know where the characters are at. I always know where everybody's at in the scene because it keeps the foundations there. While everything else is happening, it at least gives me a foundation of where the character's at. They for lack of a better term, they keep on model in a way. They have like presence there still. Like there was this whole like fight in this chamber, the last big fight, there's one more fight there, but honestly, there's one last big fight in this big circular room, and it was nuts. Like there was again nukes going on in this room, and I'm like, I know exactly where they're at, and why that's important is because there's a strategy going on there, and if I don't know where the characters are at, it's just going to turn into one of those things where, oh, so they got behind each other, I guess. No, I knew where they were at, so I know what they were trying to plan out there, if that makes sense. But can I think of a criticism? No season 2. There.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything else, so I just said no season 2. I was honestly trying to find something. But yeah, no season 2. I want to say there was one, like, not incredible episode, but I can't even remember which one it was. Like every episode was incredible.
Probably the healer in the shed. That was probably the weakest. I wouldn't say it was a bad episode. It was just the weakest.
Oh, you talking about Kraft? The monk?
Yeah, when they were in
I like that episode.
It was fun. Okay, I'm saying it's the weakest. I didn't say it was. I want to
say it was something that was involving Sign and his friend. Because there was it felt like some of the times with the Sign and his friend thing. I loved the one with Sign and him having to wake up Frieren. That episode was that was super cool. But I want to say there was another episode, I think it was the one where they were cleaning the statue and everything, and there was this whole concept about the idea of leaving a legacy behind, and how Sign's friend really badly wanted to do that and not be forgotten. That's why you want to be. I want to say that episode, unless there's something in that episode that I'm forgetting. I want to say that episode was the one that was, unless that was the episode that had them fighting that plant. I don't remember. There was one episode in there where I remember that was like, that wasn't that great. But there was always a message in each one of them. I can admit that, like, the episode with the town that guarded the sword, I want to say that episode didn't have anything like crazy and bombastic in the episode, but there was still at least some really good messages in there, despite the fact that it was like, even that episode was literally the fake hero. And so it had like this cool thing to it, even despite the fact that it wasn't like another bombastic episode, like, you know, Stark or them fighting Aurora's band. Let's be honest, that was like one of the most epic moments of that entire season, entire 2 cores was. I'd be curious if anybody thinks there's anything that tops Aurora's arc. I just think that entire thing there, because it starts with them getting into the demons, how they tick, and how they work. And it goes all the way into this epic battle against Aura herself. I just think that whole arc was just so freaking good. But yeah, I want to say that also Flammel's whole thing, which that was technically kind of linked in there a little bit as well, was Flammel and meeting, Flammel and meeting Frieren was all mixed in there as well. So that was easily the best arc. I want to say the last of the exam arcs were really good as well. I was getting a little bit worried in earlier segments of the exam arc, just because I didn't really want them to get sidetracked too much. But they did some good stuff with the exam arc, so. Anyways, anything else? Gush, perfect show. Number 1 of Mal still, for now.
Is it?
Yeah. It's been holding it. It's been holding it. Until Danger My Heart takes over. No, I'm joking. Last one. Last show. Sengoku, unless you want to do this next week, because we're
if you think you're going to talk about it for a long time, you might want to.
What do we have next week? Oh, okay. Here's the question. Were you going to watch the Banished from the Heroes Party?
Probably. I was going to try to. That's the only one I haven't watched yet.
That'll work. Yeah, we'll put Sengoku Yoku off until next week, because I do have another show over there, like Isekai Onsen Paradise, which won't take very long next week. And I think the only one that's going to probably take us a long time talking about next week is probably going to be Dangers. The rest of the shows, I don't think we're going to talk about too long. So, I don't know. We'll see. Or it'll just be an extra long next week. We did start late today. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, yeah, sorry for all the Sengoku people. I might just like put like an edit at the very beginning saying not and Sengoku Yoku not. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this run through of shows for the winter 2024 anime season. I hope you guys enjoyed these reviews. If you did, depending on where you're at, leave us a happy review on iTunes. We haven't asked for that in a long time. Or if you're on Spotify, leave a happy Spotify review over there. Definitely appreciate it. Again, we're at talkerspread.com. That's where all of our links are. Social media links, ways to get a hold of us, ways to support us, like Patreon, tips, links, all that stuff. If you're on YouTube right now, which you're watching the video version of it, I should probably say at the beginning going forward, hey guys, if you're listening to the podcast of this and you want to see our ugly mugs, we're on YouTube. You can watch it over there too. Because I haven't been putting on Spotify because, I don't know that anybody wants it there. I'd be curious, because I know that Spotify can stream either audio or video, depending on which one you have selected, but I don't know that, like, iTunes and stuff, like, differentiates that, and I don't want, like, people suddenly, they go to get our next episode on the podcast, and they're on their cellular, and suddenly it's like, holy crap, 15 gigabytes or whatever? I don't know how much it is. Anyways, that's all for me to say. If you're on YouTube right now, you can hit a super chat, or you can super thanks us, or become a member of the channel. Greatly appreciate the support. And until next time, we hope you guys enjoyed, and y'all take care.
Os.